Chapter 8:11. This was very easy to understand. First, the two sect were eager to ask for pills. Second, the status of Yang Chen was also not the same as in the past. As a fifth-grade alchemist master, the price tag was naturally different. The fire seeds that Yang Chen needed, the two sect were prepared, and even deliberately eliminated the repetitive parts. It could be said that these big sect families were rich. In addition to the same number of fire seeds as the Blue Cloud sect and the Green Jade Immortal Island, there were other things. The materials for alchemy were naturally prepared by themselves. In addition, it seemed that everyone knew that Yang Chen liked to read miscellaneous books. Each prepared 20,000 volumes of miscellaneous books, as well as some rare medicinal materials, as a thank-you gift. The most important reward was not in kind, but a promise of a favor. Both the Five Elements sect and the Qiankuan sect were willing to give Yang Chen a chance to ask. As long as Yang Chen opened his mouth and did not harm the interests of the two sect could do one thing for Yang Chen unconditionally. This was a price that would make anyone speechless. Whether it was the Five Elements sect or the Qiankuan sect, if they did one thing with the strength of the whole sect, it was estimated that it would change the dynasty in the mortal world. It was just a matter of a word. The power could be imagined. For the questioning inner heart pills, the two sect also did their best and were determined to win. Yang Chen certainly didn't care. Anyway, the two allies of the Blue Cloud sect and the Green Jade Immortal Island had already taken the lead. After a few decades, it was not a big deal to refine a furnace of questioning inner heart pills for the Five Elements sect and the Qiankuan sect. The key was to pull the two sect around the Chunyang Palace, at least in key matters, to speak for the Chunyang Palace. It was just that the two sect had to discuss who would be the first and who would be the last. The master of the palace also asked Yang Chen's opinion. After Yang Chen thought for a moment, he suddenly smiled and said, "Simply open a furnace first, let the two sects share it equally. 25 years later, open another furnace and then divide it equally." This was the plan of many rogue cultivators. The two sect masters were big and powerful, so they naturally wouldn't think of this. Palace Master Zhang Jiao was still having a headache about how to coordinate the relationship between the two sides. This was indeed a good idea that would not hurt the harmony and could benefit both sides. He had opened 2 furnaces of questioning inner heart pills, and Yang Chen simply handed them over to the head of the palace. As long as the palace master took out a part of it when the time came, he would take the other part after 25 years. At least for the next 50 years, Yang Chen wouldn't have to consider refining pills for others. Of course, now Yang Chen's refining has at least 30 questioning inner heart pills, and the 2 major sect have at most 20, which is the same as the Blue Cloud sect and the Green Jade Immortal Island. Each family will be given 2 second-grade questioning inner heart pills, which is also a balance consideration. As for the 2 sect masters paying a higher price, this is also something that can't be helped. Who let the 2 sect masters not be optimistic about Chunyang Palace at the beginning and did not cooperate with Chunyang Palace? Who would have thought that the small Chunyang Palace would develop like this in 100 years, and there would be such a monstrous alchemist master? After the 2 major sect masters had the questioning inner heart pills, their strength would also skyrocket in a short period of time. At that time, the faces of the Taishaman masters would definitely look good. He just didn't know if the Taishaman hesitated and found out that even the 5 Elements sect Qiankuan sect had the questioning inner heart pills. Would they regret not getting rid of Yang Chen earlier, or should they regret not cooperating with Chunyang Palace earlier? Yang Chen's purpose was to let the sects that compete with Taishaman vigorously develop. Even if the Taishaman were eliminated, it would not be his own sect alone. Chunyang Palace was not the only sect that had been oppressed by Taishaman over the years. He thought that it would be calm for a while and nothing would happen, but the appearance of Shanghai Feng brought Yang Chen bad news. The Wanbao Tower in Qianqiu Pavilion, presided over by Shanghai Feng, was also thriving with the support of Yang Chen and Knife Scar. Now several branches had been opened. Not only did the business reach Shirwan Mountains, but there were also branches of Wanbao Tower in several famous markets. Shanghai Feng came to Yang Chen, but he told Yang Chen something that he had just received. A branch of Wanbao Tower in the South China Sea was uprooted some time ago, and he only got the news today. Knowing that Yang Chen had come out of closed-door training, Shanghai Feng did not dare to act on his own and hurriedly came to tell Yang Chen. "Are our people okay?" Yang Chen frowned, but he still asked the manager and the shop assistant over there if they were injured. The manager and the shop assistant were all disciples of Chunyang Palace. Generally, they felt that there was no hope for cultivation, so they turned to business, and also hoped to leave some wealth for their descendants. It's all gone. Shanghai Feng's eyes were bloodshot. He also knew that some property would not put Yang Chen in his heart, but things were very cruel. He could only tell the truth. The people and goods are gone, and those people did not intend to leave anyone alive. South China Sea? Individual Cultivators Alliance? Yang Chen chewed on these two words and asked after a while, who did it? It's a individual cultivators alliance called Hidden Dragon Cave. Shanghai Feng gritted his teeth and replied, I bought the news from the Wine Immortal house. The people of Hidden Dragon Cave took a fancy to a few magic weapons, but they didn't buy them after arguing with others, so they destroyed the Wanbao Tower to vent their anger. As he said, Shanghai Feng punched the wall heavily. It took me decades to train the manager and the shop assistant. The youngest shop assistant also said that he wanted to earn spirit stones for his son to buy a good flying sword. His son's qualifications were better than him, and he was already a disciple valued by the sect. While talking, Shanghai Feng almost shed tears. It's only been 10 years and it's gone. Getting along with those guys day and night, Shanghai Feng's relationship with them was really unusual. Hearing the bad news, he was also very sad and angry. Hidden Dragon Cave? In the voice of Yang Chen, there was a little more coldness. The name of Hidden Dragon Cave was not unfamiliar to Yang Chen. In the memory of his previous life, Hidden Dragon Cave was actually a peripheral organization of Taishaman. It was secretive and specialized in doing things for Taishaman that were inconvenient for them to do. These guys were ruthless, and there were few survivors. In the South China Sea, it was also an arrogant and domineering alliance. Although the scale was not the largest, no one was willing to provoke it. Even if the people of Hidden Dragon Cave did not bully the door, Yang Chen would not let the people of Hidden Dragon Cave live well. What's more, now the people of Hidden Dragon Cave dared to touch the disciples of Chunyang Palace, and they deserved to die. How could Yang Chen let go of the opportunity that was sent to him? It was not only revenge, but also to cut off the peripheral arms of Taishaman and weaken the power of Taishaman. It was killing two birds with one stone. I will go in person. Yang Chen was in retreat and had not gone out for a long time. He just took this opportunity to go out and gain experience. Moreover, this kind of thing to behead the claws of Taishaman, Yang Chen would never let others do it. The enemy had to do it himself, and it would be more enjoyable. Yang Chen's tone of speech and the content of his words sounded very calm. However, after doing business for hundreds of years, Shanghai Feng, who had just been promoted to Jedon Realm, had long been accustomed to observing people's words and expressions. Yang Chen seemed calm, but there was a murderous intent slowly seeping out from the inside out. Even Shanghai Feng, who was close to Yang Chen, could not help but shiver. Chapter 8:12. The overseas area where the Hidden Dragon Cave was located was a long distance from the territory of the Dao sections. With the speed of Yang Chen, it would take almost half a year to get there. In his previous life, when Yang Chen was chased by Taishaman, he hid in the Rogue Cultivator Alliance there for a long time and was very familiar with it. At that time, Yang Chen learned the inside story of the Hidden Dragon Cave and their relationship with Taishaman when he was chased by Taishaman. Now Yang Chun has not had time to find them to settle accounts. They have already extended their claws to the industry of Chunyang Palace. The new hatred added to the old hatred. How could it be tolerated? However, there was one thing that Yang Chun understood very well. The influence of the Dao sects in the Rogue Cultivator Alliance was pitifully small. Otherwise, in his previous life, Yang Chun could not hide there for hundreds of years without anyone knowing. It was impossible for Yang Chun to rely on the influence of Chunyang Palace to reason over there. Of course, Yang Chun never intended to reason with the Hidden Dragon Cave. To reason with Taishaman, who had always looked at the sky, who recognized Chunyang Palace. Moreover, the Hidden Dragon Cave never said that it had anything to do with Taishaman. It was also the people of the Hidden Dragon Cave who did it, and it had nothing to do with Taishaman. Yang Chen's initial plan was to kill people, but the power of the Hidden Dragon Cave was not small. Yang Chen alone might not be able to take care of it. Therefore, Yang Chen directly found Shi Kuei and Xiesha. Killing people, do you want to go? In the face of the two mutants, Yang Chen asked straightforwardly. Go. Why don't you go? Shi Kuei and Xiesha were practicing. When they heard Yang Chen's words, their eyes suddenly lit up. Killing people with Yang Chen, not only was it very enjoyable every time, but it also released the wildness of Shi Kuei and Xiesha, and there was no future trouble. How could these two guys let go of such a good thing? Do you need more help? Xiesha agreed first, then immediately asked. Other helpers? Yang Chen was stunned. When he killed people, he liked to take Shi Kuei and Xiesha with him. At most, he took the old tree demon and other helpers. Yang Chen didn't think of who it was for the time being. The 8 new Yuanying stage cultivators who joined the Hall of Eccentrics are all your martial uncles. They are bored inside. If you need to, you can also take them to have fun. Xiesha explained. The 8 Yuanying stage masters he mentioned were the monster race masters who were subdued from the Blue Vault Mountain Immortal's Cave. In the Blue Vault Mountain Immortal's Cave, they could only fight with each other to relieve boredom. It was indeed, as Xiesha said, idle and flustered. Of course, Yang Chen would not dislike having more helpers. These guys were all fierce people who killed without blinking. Since he wanted to kill the people of Hidden Dragon Cave, naturally, the more helpers, the better. Okay, ask them if they want to go together. Yang Chen was also straightforward in doing things. These Yuanying stage masters had made a hard oath, and they all saw the hope of promotion in Chunyang Palace. They were absolutely loyal, and there was no doubt about it. As a result, Yang Chen, Shi Kuei and Xiesha appeared in front of several other Yuanying stage masters of the Hall of Eccentric. Every time he came to the front of a master, Yang Chen seemed to ask the same sentence, killing people, do you want to go? Perhaps they had already heard from Shi Kuei and Xiesha that no one cared about going out with Yang Chen to kill people and set fires. Several new Yuanying stage masters did not object. They all got up and followed Yang Chen without saying a word. This movement was too big, and it directly alarmed the old tree demon Gui Shanyu, the hall master of the Hall of Eccentrics. At the beginning, it was the old tree demon who followed Yang Chen to kill and set fires. This time, when he heard that Yang Chen was going to go out again, he couldn't help but feel itchy. Do you need help? The old tree demon's actions were very direct, and his question was very direct. He took the initiative to appear in front of Yang Chen and asked this question. What I want. Of course, the more of such masters, the better. Yang Chen didn't mind Chunyang Palace coming out, but it was impossible at that time. The old tree demon was willing to take the initiative to help. Yang Chen was certainly happy. Gui Shanyu was now the hall master of the Hall of Eccentrics, and also an elder of Chunyang Palace. Of course, he couldn't leave at will, but this did not prevent his avatar from going out with Yang Chen. This had not been done once or twice before, and the two were very familiar with it. Bring a new friend with you. The old tree demon was not alone. Everyone knew that if he went out with Yang Chen to kill and set fires, he wouldn't have to worry about anyone looking for trouble. This was a good opportunity to gain experience. Of course, he had to take care of a few masters. The friend of the old tree demon referred to Ho Yun, a Deshang stage master who had recently joined Chunyang Palace but was secretive. This monster race master, who has been practicing in the Blue Vault Mountain Immortal's cave for tens of thousands of years, has not been outside for a long time, and has been cultivating. This kind of opportunity to go out was just right for him. Yang Chen was almost happy. He thought that he was just standing up for his own shop, and it was already good to be able to pull Shi Kuei and Xie Sha, who knew that there would be 2 more Deshang stage masters and 8 Yuanying stage masters. This lineup, especially the old tree demon and Ho Yun, not to mention to deal with the hidden dragon cave, even if they faced the top masters of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance over there, they would not necessarily be at a disadvantage. Others didn't know the power of the old tree demon, but how could Yang Chen not know? He could continuously suppress the Yin fire tribulation for more than a dozen times. Even the masters of the middle Deshang stage did not dare to say that they could do it, and the old tree demon had easily done it when he was in the peak Yuanying stage. Scar was such a powerful guy, but he did not have the slightest power to fight back under the hands of the old tree demon. This was not counting the fact that the old tree demon had swallowed a whole Penglai divine wood. He believed that the current old tree demon was definitely able to compete with the guy who had reached the peak of the middle stage. The old tree demon was already so powerful, and he could fight with the old tree demon and Wang Yong. How powerful Ho Yun, who joined Chunyang Palace, could be seen. With the help of so many masters, Yang Chen was confident that he could completely pull out the hidden dragon cave in one fell swoop. This chess piece arranged by the Taishaman overseas has been doomed to perish. It was simple to only take Shi Kuei and Xie Sha out, but it was not a trivial matter to take so many masters of the sect to the overseas Rogue Cultivator Alliance that could not be covered by the power of the Dao sections. In any case, he had to inform the head of the palace and the elders. In fact, Yang Chen had not yet asked the head of the palace, and the head of the palace already knew the movements of Yang Chen. Now Yang Chen was the treasurer of Chunyang Palace. It was not known how many people were paying attention to his every move, especially the head of the palace. So when Yang Chen appeared in front of the head of the palace with several masters, the head of the palace was not surprised at all. It's good to go out and gain experience. As soon as the head of the palace opened his mouth, he put Yang Chen's private behavior under the guise of the sect. The masters of the sect also have to walk around. Chapter 8:13. Since this matter was now defined as a master of the sect going out to gain experience, it was not as simple as Yang Chen going out to provoke the hidden dragon cave alone. Yang Chen's every move has been linked to the decisions of the sect. If they dared to target Yang Chen, they would directly target Chunyang Palace. At this moment, Yang Chen once again felt the care of the sect. In this regard, Yang Chen was not pretentious and naturally accepted the kindness of the sect. Before setting off, Yang Chen saw Elder Ho Yun, who arrived with the old tree demon. From the beginning of knowing the name Ho Yun, this was the first time Yang Chen saw Ho Yun. Ho Yun, who cultivated the transformation secret art, transformed into a sturdy man with the same size as Yang Chen's current body. His whole body revealed an unusually strong aura. In addition to the sturdy figure, Ho Yun's face and hands were also densely covered with hair, just like an ordinary person with hirsutism. He did not wear any robes or armor on his body, just an ordinary cotton robe. He looked like a big farmer. If he didn't know the details of Ho Yun, even if it was Yang Chen, at first sight of Ho Yun, he would think that he was an ordinary farmer, not a master of the Deshang stage. As soon as he saw Yang Chen, he didn't wait for the old tree demon to introduce him. He walked forward and came to the opposite side of Yang Chen, looked up and down a few times, reached out and heavily patted on Yang Chen's shoulder twice, laughed and said, "Yang Chen, good, this is what a cultivator should be like." Ho Yun's words caused a burst of contempt from several surrounding Yuanying stage monster cultivators. At the Yuanying stage, everyone cultivated the transformation secret art and became a human body, but at most, it was to maintain a strong figure, which was completely different from Yang Chen's cultivation of the body refining technique. It was estimated that this was what made Ho Yun look very much to his liking. Just this one action and one sentence made everyone except the old tree demon Shi Kuei and Xie Sha secretly surprised in their hearts. They were all experts and had experienced Ho Yun's prowess. Don't look at the 2 times he patted Yang Chen seemed intimate and casual, but everyone understood how powerful Ho Yun was. Those 2 slaps, the ordinary monster race masters could be easily slapped to the ground. At least half of the Yuanying stage masters present were softened by Ho Yun's intimate actions. After all, Ho Yun's body was a Herculean ape king, born with divine power. Even the powerful guys like Shi Kuei and Xie Sha, in the face of Ho Yun's casual slap, they also used all their strength to resist. Coupled with the strong physique of their monster clan, they could bear it. Seeing that Yang Chen stood in the same place without even changing his expression, and so casually took Ho Yun's 2 hits, and there was no sign of Yang Chen using spirit force, everyone was surprised and suddenly looked at Yang Chen in a new light. The Yuanying stage masters who did not have much contact with Yang Chen did not know much about Yang Chen, they all heard about him. But looking at Ho Yun's 2 slaps, Deng Sihai's view of Yang Chen has changed. As for Ho Yun himself, he was even more surprised. He did not expect that Yang Chen, a little junior in the middle Jedon stage, could take his 2 slaps without batting an eyelid. Although Ho Yun was afraid of hurting Yang Chen in the first slap, but seeing Yang Chen so relaxed, the second slap was the greatest strength of his body. The power of that slap was more than 100,000 jin. It was estimated that the Yuanying stage masters had to try their best to mobilize the whole body's spirit power and monster power to make themselves stand firm. Even with such a huge force, Yang Chen stood in the same place and did not move much. At this time, even Ho Yun could not help but look at this junior differently. He only knew from the mouth of the old tree demon that Yang Chen was capable, but he still had some disapproval in his heart. How powerful could a junior in the Jedon stage be? Under the 2 slaps, Ho Yun's contempt flew away without a trace. He originally thought that Yang Chen was only good at alchemy, and that his cultivation should not be worth mentioning. However, standing in the same place, he did not even mobilize his spirit power, and only relied on his physical strength to withstand his 2 slap. With this move alone, Ho Yun knew that if they really fought, maybe these Yuanying stage masters around him would not necessarily be the opponent of Yang Chen. As a master of the Deshang stage, and a master who has been cultivating for tens of thousands of years, how rich his experience was. In the blink of an eye, Ho Yun changed to a laughing face and praised him again and again. Yang Chen was such an interesting disciple, it seemed that it was not a bad thing to go out with him. Didn't you see that even a master like the old tree demon couldn't help but send out his clone? Before the trip, Yang Chen went to say goodbye to his master. Gao Yu was now refining the dragon horn flying sword, and within 100 years, he would not want to leave Chunyang Palace. This was also good, at least his safety could be absolutely guaranteed. On the other hand, Gong Sunling had already been waiting for Gao Yu. Yang Chen was going out, and she, who had been back for some days, naturally had to follow him. Killing people, do you want to go? For Gong Sunling, Yang Chen was no exception. After saying goodbye to his master, he went to Gong Sunling and asked casually, "Go?" Gong Sunling looked at Yang Chen with a smile on her face and replied. Going out with Yang Chen to do the same thing made her have a feeling of following her husband. This feeling was very sweet. On the South China seaside, Gong Sunling had not been there yet. Taking this opportunity, she could also add the South China Sea to the Mountain River geographical map, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Adding up to 14 people, except for Yang Chen and Gong Sunling, who were in the Jedon stage, the others were either in the Yuanying stage or the Deshang stage. They were all seniors. Yang Chen naturally couldn't send everyone to the Dome Hall, so everyone went on Gong Xuanling's building ship and flew towards the South China Sea. After arriving at the sea, the water-dividing wings were blessed on both sides of the ship, and the speed suddenly doubled. However, there were still a few months' journey from the Rogue Cultivator Alliance in the South China Sea. Everyone was on the ship, cultivating separately. Of course, Yang Chen was not stingy, and a lot of Jade Dragon wine was enough. The food carefully made by Gong Sunling made a group of monster cultivators swallow their tongues. Along the way, everyone exchanged toasts and was very happy. While on the road, Yang Chen was also thinking about how to start with the Hidden Dragon Cave so that others could not say anything. Even if it was the Taishanmen, they could only eat this loss, but they could not find Yang Chen to settle accounts. All of this needed a title that would make Yang Chen kill all the people in the Hidden Dragon Cave, and no one would stand on the side of the Hidden Dragon Cave morally. Of course, the shop in the Wanbao Tower was destroyed, and all the shopkeepers in the shop were killed, which was a good reason. However, these were not enough. In his previous life, Yang Chen, who had been hiding from the Taishanmen for more than 100 years, knew that if he wanted to do it thoroughly, he must at least let the people of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance stand on his side. Chapter 8:14. The Rogue Cultivator Alliance on the South China Sea side was located on a large archipelago in the middle of the South China Sea. It was very far from the Dao sect's territory, and there were many islands around, and there were even many places suitable for cultivators to cultivate under the sea, which was why the Dao sect could no longer exert influence. The journey was long, and it was impossible for the masters to come out of their nests regardless of the safety of their nests, and a few small minions could not guarantee complete control of this place, which became a paradise for rogue cultivators. The largest forces here were several rogue cultivator alliances, and the Hidden Dragon Cave was one of them. The Hidden Dragon Cave occupied more than a dozen relatively small islands, united hundreds of people, and became a small rogue cultivator alliance among several forces. The most powerful master of the Hidden Dragon Cave was a cave master of the peak Yuanying stage, who was extremely fierce. In this rogue cultivator's territory, he also made a big name for himself, and ordinary people did not dare to touch the tiger's whiskers easily. Yang Chen and his party rushed all the way, but did not directly find the Hidden Dragon Cave, but found the largest rogue cultivator alliance, the South China Sea Alliance. The South China Sea Alliance was simply the local emperor on the South China Sea side, even more arrogant than the Taishanmen in the Dao sect. First, the strength of the South China Sea Alliance was indeed shocking. The four Deshang stage backers occupied the hundreds of islands with the most abundant resources and the largest area. There were tens of thousands of disciples in the alliance, which was simply a huge sect. However, the South China Sea Alliance did not declare the establishment of a sect, and mainly absorbed rogue cultivators. However, although the South China Sea Alliance was overbearing, it paid attention to the rules, which was one of the reasons why Yang Chen came here to find the South China Sea Alliance directly. Of course, another important reason was that the development of the South China Sea Alliance in the next few hundred years, Yang Chen knew almost all of them. Right now, there was just one thing that could be used by Yang Chen. Only Yang Chen appeared outside the gate of the South China Sea Alliance. Others were resting on the ship with Gong Sunling. The arrival of a group of masters did not attract anyone's attention. Only two people showed up, Yang Chen and Gong Sunling. In this South China Sea, two juniors in the Jedon stage were not enough to make people wary. Who? Give me your name. As soon as Yang Chen approached the gate of the South China Sea Alliance, someone immediately shouted. It must be said that the South China Sea sect did have the capital to be domineering. Even at the door, there were two Jedon stage masters with more than a dozen Foundation stage disciples, almost no less than those big sections. I'm Yang Chen, the owner of Wanbao Tower, and I'm here to pay a visit to Alliance Master Bien. Yang Chen followed the etiquette and handed over the visiting card. However, Yang Chen did not say that he was from Chunyang Palace. Instead, he came with the identity of the owner of Wanbao Tower. Bian Shuren was the leader of the South China Sea Alliance, but it was only the leader on the surface. The real master behind the scenes was the master of the thinking Deshang stage, but they had been concentrating on cultivation and were unwilling to manage these mundane things. Yang Chen? The owner of Wanbao Tower? Never heard of it. Seeing Yang Chen's greeting etiquette, the two Jedon stage masters in charge of the door looked at each other and saw the strangeness in each other's eyes. Then one of the Jedon stage masters waved his hand impatiently and snapped, "Can you see the leader of the alliance? Why don't you step back?" The eyes of several people were all raised to the sky. How could they look up to a guy they had never heard of? If it weren't for Yang Chen's courtesy, maybe he would have been thrown out. In this regard, Yang Chen was not surprised at all. It was not difficult to join the South China Sea Alliance, but it was not so easy to see the leader of the South China Sea Alliance. Bian Shuren and several other senior executives have been troubled by one thing for a long time. Unless it was a major event or a big figure related to the alliance, they would not come forward easily. "I'll have to trouble you to report this matter." Although Yang Chen was scolded harshly, there was no change on his face. He still said to the gatekeepers on the opposite side, "I know a little bit about the art of Qi Huang, maybe I can help the leaders and elders solve some problems." Bian Shuren's own son suddenly suffered from a strange disease 200 years ago. His whole body was sore and weak, and he relied on Bian Shuren and several other elders to take turns to inject spiritual power every day to continue his life. This son of Bian Shuren was the apple of his eye. He was also the darling of his sworn brothers who were also elders. They had watched him grow up. Originally, his aptitude and cultivation were excellent. Unexpectedly, after one trip to the sea, he inexplicably became like this. Bian Shuren and a few of his brothers exhausted all their efforts to save his life. Many people in the alliance were not very clear about these things. Yang Chen also learned these secrets after escaping from the South China Sea Alliance 100 years later. But by that time, the South China Sea Alliance was already on the verge of collapse, and it could no longer shelter Yang Chen. Now Yang Chen said that he knew some of the art of Qi Huang, and the two gatekeepers of the Jedon stage masters suddenly muttered. There was no news of the alliance master needing any doctor or anything like that. What did Yang Chen mean by this? They didn't want to report it, but they were afraid of breaking the master of the alliance master. But if they reported it to the alliance master and ignored it, they were unwilling to disturb the alliance master for no reason. Yang Chen also saw the hesitation of the two Jedon stage masters and said with a smile, "It's not necessary to report to the alliance master, any elder on duty can do it. It's just hard for you to make a trip, I will be grateful." As he spoke, Yang Chen took out a middle-grade spirit stone, which seemed to be 1 or 2 jin, and handed it over easily. Letting others run errands naturally can't be in vain. With this middle-grade spirit stone, and Yang Chen just reported to the elder on duty instead of the alliance master, the two Jedon stage masters were no longer under pressure. The two looked at each other, and one of them nodded quickly, "You wait here." Then they turned and left. After a cup of tea, the Jedon stage master who went to report rushed back. He glanced at Yang Chen strangely, then bowed slightly and made a gesture of invitation, and said loudly, "Distinguished guest, please come with me." In just a short time, the title became a distinguished guest, which must have surprised the Jedon stage master. Yang Chen has never heard of this person. How did he know that the alliance needed a doctor? Yang Chen did not have the slightest pressure, and followed the Jedon stage master into the South China Sea Alliance. Even the elder on duty was also Bian Shuren's sworn brother. How could he not know the current predicament of the South China Sea Alliance? "Are you a doctor?" In the guest hall, Yang Chen met the elder on duty. What made Yang Chen strange was that this elder turned out to be a woman. For a moment, Yang Chen thought of the identity of the elder, the wife of Bian Shuren, Shu Lanqiu. Chapter 8:15. Speaking of it, Shu Lanqiu was the person he cared about the most, because she was the mother of the sick Bian Yong. Even Bian Shuren was not as concerned about Bian Yong's condition as Shu Lanqiu. As soon as she heard Yang Chun say that he was a doctor, and he sounded very confident, she immediately brought him in. "Greetings, Elder Shu." Yang Chun did not directly answer Shu Lanqiu's question, but bowed first, then straightened up and said in a clear voice, "This junior Yang Chun, as the owner of Wanbao Tower, has a little dabbled in alchemy." "Wanbao Tower?" Shu Lanqiu looked at Yang Chun and suddenly sneered. "Wanbao Tower has been bullying the market in my South China Sea and has been erased by the hidden dragon cave. What are you doing here?" "Naturally, it is to seek justice for my Wanbao Tower's shopkeeper and staff." Yang Chen faced Shu Lanqiu's sneer, without any fear, and directly stated his purpose. "No matter which sect you are from, I advise you that the South China Sea is not a place where you can intervene. Where you come from, you should go back honestly," Shu Lanqiu said lightly. Originally, she disdained to see a junior in the Jedon stage, but since it involved Bian Yong, it was natural to care more. Just looking at Shu Lanqiu's efforts for a while, she knew the name of Wanbao Tower and knew how well the South China Sea Alliance controlled this side. Even the excuse that the 10,000 treasure tower was destroyed by the hidden dragon cave was known, it can be seen. Whether or not my Wanbao Tower is bullying the market, the elder knows in his heart. Yang Chen didn't talk back, just said one sentence. "If the elders of the South China Sea Alliance can't see what's wrong with this kind of pretense of seizing, it would be too low. A strong dragon can't suppress a local snake, I can't blame others." Shu Lanqiu smiled slightly and said nothing more. Things that everyone had a tacit understanding about would be meaningless if they were exposed. These were chores. Shu Lanqiu was concerned about whether Yang Chen could really cure Bian Yong, so she immediately changed the topic. "Mr. said that you are proficient in the art of Qi Huang, is that true?" "I don't dare. I just know a thing or two," Yang Chen expressed modestly again. He knew that Shu Lanqiu would definitely take the initiative to mention this matter. "I have never heard of patience in the South China Sea Alliance, but where did you know?" Shu Lanqiu listened to Yang Chen's words, but her face slowly changed, and there was a sharpness in her speech, and there was also a bit more suspicion. Bian Yong's serious illness was due to his injuries. After his injuries were healed, he was left with a permanent illness. No matter what kind of elixirs he used, it was of no use. Only a few high-level members of the South China Sea Alliance knew about this, and it had been kept secret. Yang Chen was able to know it, which was naturally very suspicious. This younger generation junior has a slight understanding of the art of Qi Huang. A few years ago, I had a chance to see the Alliance Master Bian from a distance. Yang Chen's words, with a sense of fear, said, "At that time, the face of the Alliance Master Bian did not seem to be very good." "So what?" Shu Lanqiu's face became more and more gloomy. What was the relationship between seeing her husband a few years ago and finding out that there was a patient? Could it be that a bad complexion was sick? At that time, it seemed that the Alliance Master Bian was a little ill. Yang Chen didn't care how gloomy Shu Lanqiu's face was and said to himself, "I was not sure, but after seeing the elder, I was more sure." A few years ago, he saw the face of the Alliance Master Bian and suspected that he was sick. Now he saw the wife of the Alliance Master Bian. He was more and more sure that the Alliance Master Bian was sick. He said it in front of Shu Lanqiu, the wife of the Alliance Master Bian. How could it not make Shu Lanqiu furious? "May I ask if Mr. is here to provoke my South China Sea Alliance?" Shu Lanqiu was furious and immediately stood up. This junior's eyes will not be wrong. Yang Chen sat on the side unmoved. Although Shu Lanqiu looked angry, she still called him Mr., which has explained a lot of problems. This little trick has not been put in Yang Chen's eyes. "Does Mr. really think that my husband and I are both slightly ill?" Shu Lanqiu saw Yang Chen's confident appearance, and she also believed a little. Could it be that Bian Yong's illness infected her and her husband, so it was seen by Yang Chen? The alliance Master Bian and the Elder are still a small matter for you now. I'm afraid that the people who are really ill are not a day or two. Yang Chen shook his head slowly and said these words. As soon as these words came out, Shu Lanqiu's heart was filled with a little more hope. Bian Yong has been ill for hundreds of years. Shu Lanqiu and her husband have tried their best to no avail. They can only rely on a few sworn brothers to help with spiritual power every day to maintain their vitality. Yang Chen only looked at himself and Bian Shuren and judged that there was a patient. This eyesight was really amazing. Maybe he could really cure Bian Yong's illness. To tell you the truth, there is indeed a patient. Of course, Shu Lanqiu would not easily let go of the life-saving straw. Since Yang Chen saw it, she immediately went down the slope and admitted that there was a patient. It must be a close person to the alliance Master Bian and the Elder. Yang Chen did not have the joy of guessing right and said faintly, "The person who is seriously ill is my son." At this moment, Shu Lanqiu no longer needed to hide it, and quickly admitted it, but immediately followed by asking Mr. My son has been weak in limbs, poor in appetite, lethargy, and listlessness, but what is the disease? I haven't seen the patient. This younger generation junior doesn't dare to make irresponsible remarks. Yang Chen did not answer, but replied faintly. Shu Lanqiu also scolded herself for being too concerned. If it was an ordinary disease, it could be diagnosed and treated by others. How could it be delayed for hundreds of years without being cured? But she asked a little too anxiously. Blame this old body for being rude. Shu Lanqiu stood up and very respectfully made a gesture to Yang Chen. I also ask Mr. to move and treat my child. Soon, the two arrived at the room where Bian Yong was recuperating. In the room, in addition to Bian Yong, there was also a big man. His eyes were like electricity, staring at Yang Chen for a while. If Shu Lanqiu hadn't come in with Yang Chen, maybe this big man would have started immediately. Please make a diagnosis. Shu Lanqiu once again invited Yang Chen. Yang Chen sat in front of the bed, then looked at the patient's eyes, checked the tongue coating, felt the pulse on both wrists, and even palpated the patient, then frowned and got up. How is it? Shu Lanqiu asked nervously. As a mother, she was more anxious than anyone about Bian Yong's situation. This is not an illness. Yang Chen said with certainty, this is a rare poison. Chapter 8:16. Poisoned. Not only Shu Lanqiu, but even the big man who had been listening suddenly exclaimed. There was no way. This news was so shocking that they simply couldn't accept it. For hundreds of years, people didn't know how many famous doctors they had secretly found, whether in the secular world or in the cultivation world. They all thought that it was a rare disease that could not be cured. However, as soon as Yang Chen met, he said that he was poisoned by a rare poison. How could this be tolerated? Is my son really poisoned? The big man asked again in a low voice, and at the same time, he waved his big hand, and several restrictions wrapped the entire room where the sick bed was located, so that no one would hear it. It's poisoning. Yang Chen nodded heavily, sighed, and said with certainty, I'm sure that this is poisoning, Alliance Master Bian. The other party called the patient as his son. Naturally it was Bian Shuren himself, not to mention that Yang Chen had also claimed to have seen Bian Shuren before, and he couldn't call out the Alliance Master Bian. What poison? As soon as Bian Shuren heard that Yang Chen was confirmed to be poisoned, he suddenly changed into a different person, full of murderous intent. Is there a way to cure it? Shu Lanqiu next to him had already cried with joy. For the first time in so many years, someone had given a diagnosis with great certainty. Whether it was a disease or poisoning, there was always a direction to work toward. Young Master Bian's poison is not a big problem. At most, it will make people weak, drowsy, and absent-minded. It will not be fatal for a while. Yang Chen said slowly, while organizing his own words. On the contrary, the two of you may have some trouble. What do you mean? Bien Shuren's face suddenly changed again. His son became like this, and Yang Chen said that it was okay. Instead, he said that he and his wife, the two masters of the Yuanying stage, were in trouble. What was his intention? Yang Chen did not answer immediately, but sniffed around for a long time, and his frown never loosened. This action made Bien Shuren and his wife inexplicable. They didn't know what happened, but no one dared to disturb Yang Chen. After a long time, Yang Chen looked puzzled and frowned. It shouldn't be. What shouldn't be? Shu Lanqiu asked in confusion. She was now concerned about her son and her husband, and it also involved herself. In any case, she had to ask clearly. Your son's poison is unique and easy to deal with. Yang Chen explained patiently. It's just that I haven't figured out how the two seniors were poisoned. We are also poisoned? Bien Shuren and Shu Lanqiu were surprised for a while. How is it possible? Up until now, they had not felt anything unusual. How could they say that they were poisoned? Junior knows that Senior doesn't believe me. Yang Chen got straight to the point and didn't beat around the bush. He quickly stated his request. Senior, please find me a live fiery arowana. We will know at a glance. They were in the middle of the sea, so a live fire arowana was not a rare thing. Although in the secular world, this was already a great nourishing holy product, but in the South China Sea Alliance, it was just an ordinary thing. Soon, a large wooden basin with seawater and fish was sent to Yang Chen. After still arranging the restriction, Yang Chen got up and grabbed the fiery arowana. He took out a jade bowl and cut the body of the fiery arowana with a knife. After a while, a small bowl of fiery arawana's blood was accumulated. Senior, please start and take a little of your son's blood. Yang Chen was not polite and directly told Shu Lanqiu. Seeing that Yang Chen was so mysterious, Shu Lanqiu and Bien Shuren were also a little anxious. Shu Lanqiu glanced at her husband, and Bien Shuren nodded very slightly. Shu Lanqiu then walked to the sickbed and gently cut Bien Yang's wrist, squeezed out a little blood into a jade cup, and then quickly repaired the small wound with spiritual power. When Shu Lanqiu finished all this, Yang Chen divided the fiery arawana's blood into 4 parts and distributed them in 4 small fish jade bowls. Then he picked up the jade cup and slowly poured the drops of Bien Yang's blood into one of the fiery arawana's blood. Hey, a creepy sound suddenly came out. As soon as the two kinds of blood came into contact, white smoke came out and the sizzling sound came out. It took a while before it stopped. When it calmed down, the red blood in the jade bowl had also turned into a strange color liquid, which was actually dark purple. Yang Chen broke the gill off the head of the fiery arowana and threw it into the small jade bowl. After a while, there was another sizzling sound, and the gill began to slowly dissolve in the purple liquid. Almost without Yang Chen saying anything more, Bien Shuren and Shu Lanqiu both took a breath. This blood turned into something that could corrode bones, and the toxicity could be imagined. Immediately afterward, Yang Chen cut a hole in his hand and dripped it into the second jade bowl. The two kinds of blood mixed for a long time, without any movement, still so red, without any change. Immediately, Yang Chen pushed the remaining 2 jade bowls in front of Bien Shuren and Shu Lanqiu and made a please gesture. Obviously, this was Yang Chen's way of letting them try it with blood. The two did not hesitate. They cut their blood vessels and squeezed out a few drops of blood and dripped it into the fiery arawana's blood. There was a sound and white smoke, but it was not intense. Compared with Bien Yang's blood, the reaction of the two blood was very slight. However, after a while, the red fiery arawana's blood in the jade bowl turned pale purple. At this time, Bien Shuren and Shu Lanqiu's faces suddenly became ugly. They had been poisoned unknowingly, which was really incredible. However, everything in front of them made them unable to believe it. Yang Chen's blood had no reaction, but all 3 of Bien Shuren's family had a reaction. Needless to say, there must be something wrong with this. If the two seniors don't believe it, take a closer look at the blood of the two seniors. There is already some faint purple in it. Yang Chen sighed and said slowly. Bien Shuren and his wife were even more shocked, and they desperately made a few more drops of blood and dripped it into the white jade bowl and looked at it carefully. At first glance, the faces of the two people changed again. In their red blood there was a little bit of light purple. This light purple was very rare. If it weren't for the fact that both of them were cultivators, their eyesight was greatly increased, and they were reminded by Yang Chen, and the contrast in the white jade bowl was clear. They really wouldn't have been able to find it for a while. This has fully explained one point, that is, Bien Shuren and Shu Lanqiu have been poisoned unknowingly, and the two of them were unaware of it. Chapter 8:17. Originally, the poison in young Master Bien's body was not a fatal poison, but once it comes into contact with something in the blood of the fire dragon fish, it will turn into a highly toxic poison. Yang Chen explained slowly. In fact, there was no need for Yang Chen to explain too much detail. Both Bien Shuren and Shu Lanqiu understood what was going on. The demonstration just now had explained everything. The two seniors have been taking good care of young Master Bien. The poisonous gas in young Master Bien's body has accumulated for a long time and has also entered your body. Yang Chen continued his judgment. It's just that this younger generation junior has never smelled the blood of the fire dragon fish around you, so I don't understand how the two seniors were poisoned. Seeing Yang Chen's confusion, Bien Shuren and Shu Lanqiu suddenly looked at each other and said in unison, "Tonic soup. Tonic soup? What is this?" Yang Chen suddenly came up, as if he had found the answer, and asked eagerly. This tonic soup, as the name implies, is used to nourish the spiritual awareness. Shu Lanqiu explained to Yang Chen with a heavy face. Every day after we pass the spiritual power to Yong-er, we are always tired and have to drink some of this tonic soup. To make this tonic soup, we need to use the fire dragon fish. In just an instant, all three of them understood everything. When Bien Yong was poisoned, the Alliance Master Bien and other elders would drink the tonic soup made by the fire dragon fish after working hard to replenish Bien Yong's vitality every day. They just had face-to-face contact with Bien Yong, and the poisonous gas invasion was almost negligible. In addition, after boiling into the soup, some of the components in the fire dragon fish blood were also negligible. Perhaps 1 or 2 meals didn't matter, but after hundreds of years of accumulation, both of them were unknowingly poisoned. The most ruthless part was that the poison had almost no effect in the early stage. This could be seen from the fact that Bien Shuren and Shu Lanqiu have not noticed any abnormalities. As time went by, who knew what would happen? Not good. Yang Chen suddenly thought of something again and hurriedly reminded. Did the other elders of the South China Sea Alliance also pass the spiritual power to young Master Bien and drink this tonic soup? Not good. When Bien Shuren was reminded by Yang Chen, he was also shocked. In the past 100 years, every elder had helped Bien Yong with their spiritual power, even the elders of the Deshang stage were no exception. Almost everyone had drunk the spirit-replenishing soup. The thief who did this to Bien Yong must have already calculated this and made such an arrangement. Although it was not known who arranged such a poisonous plan, it was very obvious for the South China Sea Alliance. This has almost wiped out the top executives of the South China Sea Alliance. As long as the time is up, even without the enemy, the top executives of the South China Sea Alliance will die of poison. Without these masters, the South China Sea Alliance will only be scattered. The more Bien Shuren thought about it, the more terrified and furious he became. What kind of enemy would make such a long time and even take hundreds of years to trap the South China Sea Alliance? Not everyone drank the replenishing spirit soup. Shu Lanqiu's face suddenly became ferocious, gnashing her teeth and said, "There is a person who has never drunk it." Bien Shuren was stunned, and then his face became complicated. Yang Chen was on the side, but he didn't say anything, he just listened quietly, as if it had nothing to do with him. In my South China Sea alliance, Elder Luo has never liked seafood. He never eats fish and shrimp. Naturally, he will not drink the replenishing spirit soup made by the fire arowana. Bian Shuren seemed to be talking to the air and said these words. But everyone knew that these words were said to Yang Chen. Maybe it's just a coincidence. Yang Chen knew that he had to speak, and he defended the elder Luo, who he had never seen before. It's not a big sin not to eat seafood. It's not that Yang Chen's character is good. He has to speak well for others. It's really hundreds of years of friendship with others. Yang Chen is just meeting for the first time. If he speaks badly, who knows what others will think in their hearts. Simply be a good person and think well of people. Even if Bian Shuren doesn't want to think so, it has nothing to do with Yang Chen. Elder Luo is bent on building a relationship with the Central Plains Dao sects. Bian Shuren smiled and did not hide the stranger Yang Chen whom he met for the first time. He just said to himself, "It's really a coincidence." Hearing Bian Shuren say this, Yang Chen's heart sank for a while. How similar is this hundreds of years of arrangement to the conspiracy of the Taishanmen in the Chunyang Palace? The hidden dragon cave is the pawn of the Taishanmen. Is there a shadow of the hidden dragon cave in this? Sir, I don't know if this poison can be cured. Shu Lanqiu has always been concerned about whether her son can be saved, and now she is more concerned about whether her husband and herself can be saved. So when Bian Shuren finished venting, she immediately asked Yang Chen. If the poison is deep, then even the great principal golden immortal can't do anything about it. Yang Chen's words directly sent Shu Lanqiu into the abyss, but immediately pulled her from the abyss to the sky. But now the poison is not deep, it's not difficult. As long as you find a few medicinal materials, you can detoxify it. As for young Master Bian, it's even simpler. The same medicinal materials, remove 2 flavors and refine it. What medicinal materials, as long as Sir can say it, even if it is a mountain of knives and a sea of fire, the South China Sea Alliance will definitely be able to find it for Sir. Shu Lanqiu was really excited. Yang Chen could not only save her husband and herself, but also her son. Was there anything happier than this? It's not necessary to go up the mountain of knives and under the sea of fire. Medicinal materials are not too rare. It's easy to find them in the Central Plains. Yang Chen smiled and waved his hand. I have a branch in the Wanbao Tower. Unfortunately, the branch was robbed by the hidden dragon cave. Listening to Yang Chen talking about the Wanbao Tower, Shu Lanqiu remembered what Yang Chen came for. Yang Chen has helped them so much, and the South China Sea Alliance will also come forward and put pressure on the hidden dragon cave. Just as she was about to tell Yang Chen about this, Shu Lanqiu's face suddenly changed a little. She turned to her husband Bian Shuren and said faintly, Elder Luo is also on good terms with the people of the hidden dragon cave. The hidden dragon cave is also willing to be involved with the Central Plains. Wanbao Tower has medicinal materials for treatment, but the hidden dragon cave destroyed the branch of Wanbao Tower. It's really a coincidence. Sir, if you don't refine it and take those medicinal materials alone, will it have any effect? Shu Lanqiu seemed to think of something and asked Yang Chen again. Of course, it's impossible to completely detoxify it, but it can offset a lot of toxicity. Yang Chen opened his mouth decisively, and the reason was not used. Good. Good. Bian Shuren also figured out a lot of things, and couldn't help but say 2 good words. Elder Luo, Hidden Dragon Cave. Chapter 8:18. Rare things are precious. The specialty of the monster race can make a lot of money if it is taken to the Central Plains Dao sect. In the same way, the specialty of the Central Plains can also make a lot of money if it is taken to the island in the South China Sea. Wanbao Tower's branch in the South China Sea is playing this idea. Shanghai Feng's business is not just a simple transaction, but has reached the realm of maximizing profit. Based on this reason, The price of some things in Wanbao Tower's branch in the South China Sea can definitely make people jealous and surprised. The Hidden Dragon Cave's attack on the Wanbao Tower's branch may not be just for the sake of money. However, now with Xu Lanqiu's analysis, the purpose of the Hidden Dragon Cave to deal with Wanbao Tower has changed dramatically. At least in the hearts of the South China Sea Alliance's couple, there was definitely a conspiracy. Mr. Yang, you can rest assured that the justice of Wanbao Tower, I will definitely help Mr. Yang get it back. After listening to Xu Lanqiu's purpose of Yang Chen's visit to the South China Sea Alliance, Bian Shuren immediately patted his chest and promised. No kidding, the lives of his son and his wife, and the lives of the senior members of the South China Sea Alliance are in the hands of Yang Chen. Not to mention the sacrifice of a hidden dragon cave that is hostile to the South China Sea Alliance. Even if they are asked to fight with other rogue cultivator alliances in the South China Sea at the same time, they will not hesitate to make a challenge. I don't dare to bother the leader of the alliance. Since it is the grievance between Wanbao Tower and the Hidden Dragon Cave, it is natural that I will solve it between Wanbao Tower and the Hidden Dragon Cave. Yang Chen didn't want the South China Sea Alliance to intervene for the time being. Once the South China Sea Alliance intervened, not to mention whether it would kill the Hidden Dragon Cave, even if it delayed for some time, it was estimated that Yang Chen didn't want to see it. Especially the group that came with Yang Chen, they came with the purpose of killing and arson with Yang Chen. If they really stood up, others wouldn't say it. It was estimated that Shi Kuei and Xie Sha would be seriously dissatisfied, not to mention Ho Yun, who seemed to have been holding back for a long time. This is the site of my South China Sea Alliance. There is no reason for Mr. to do it by himself. Bian Shuren and Xu Lanqiu and his wife were trying to dissuade. They must take things to themselves. It's not that they have to take the initiative. Yang Chen is now concerned about the safety of the top management of the South China Sea Alliance. He is a small Jidan stage master. He is going to argue with the Hidden Dragon Cave with several Yuanying stage masters. Not to mention the outcome, once Yang Chen is hurt, wouldn't it make the hope of the South China Sea Alliance disappear? In any case, they can't let Yang Chen do it. I dare not bother the South China Sea Alliance, as long as the Alliance Master can preside over justice when we solve our grievances. Yang Chen made up his mind. Anyway, as long as the South China Sea Alliance took the lead and proved to himself that the 10,000 treasure tower occupied the truth, everything else would naturally be solved by a group of killing stars. Of Chin Chin. Chun and Bien Xian couple for Bien couple for it. Yang of the Sea. The South China Sea Alliance will absolutely cooperate with Wanbao Tower, and how the South China Sea Alliance needs to cooperate, the South China Sea Alliance will cooperate. Yang Chen did not make empty promises. He directly used the medicinal ingredients he had on hand to refine a pill, which could temporarily suppress the poison in Bian Yang's body, allowing him to maintain a normal life for a month. Bian Shuren and his wife also did not doubt it and gave Bian Yong the pill. In less than half a day, Bian Yong, who was originally lying on the sickbed with a sore body and was unable to move, immediately recovered his vigor. Bian Yong's cultivation base was in the Jiadan stage. In the past 100 years, there were Yuanying stage and Deshang stage masters who gave him spiritual power every day. After a long time, his cultivation base did not fall but rose, and he had already faintly reached the edge of a breakthrough. As long as the poison in his body was completely removed, it was estimated that he would reach the stage of nascent soul formation. Bian Shuren and his wife were pleasantly surprised. For 100 years, they only maintained their son's survival. Now they suddenly saw their son standing in front of them as if nothing had happened, calling his father and mother. At this moment, both of them seemed to be in a dream. In particular, Bian Yong's cultivation base had reached the peak Jidan stage and was about to face a breakthrough. This definitely made the Bian Shuren couple feel like they had won the big lottery of 100 million yuan prize pool, and they were so happy that they didn't know how to celebrate. Bian Yong has been paralyzed for more than 100 years, and lived a life worse than death. Today, with a pill from Yang Chen, he was immediately no different from a normal person. Bian Yong heard what Yang Chen said clearly on the sickbed. Bian Yong always thought that he was sick. Now he knew that he was poisoned, and the thief actually wanted to use his body to plot against the entire senior management of the South China Sea Alliance. For a while, Bian Yong's anger was simply unparalleled. When he heard that Yang Chen was going to deal with the hidden dragon cave, he even planned to join with Yang Chen. Finally, they were dissuaded by the Bian Shuren couple, but they also promised a sentence. If Yang Chen needed it, Bian Yong would not hesitate to go through fire and water. Yang Chen could have removed the hidden dangers of the senior management of the South China Sea Alliance in one fell swoop, but Yang Chen still kept a hand, just woke up Bian Yong first, and shirked the lack of complete medicinal materials. This also forced the South China Sea Alliance to do its best to help Yang Chen, instead of turning their backs after the possible hidden dangers were resolved. Next, the South China Sea Alliance must communicate at the top level, at least what Bian Shuren and Xu Lanqiu had just analyzed. They must let their sworn brothers know. Of course, the suspected elder Luo would definitely have a very tragic end. There was no way, who made everything happen so coincidentally. With the lessons of Chunyang Palace, Yang Chen was almost certain that elder Luo was a spy of Taishanmen. As long as there was a problem with the senior management of the South China Sea Alliance, elder Luo would definitely be in power. Then, with the great achievements of annexing the hidden dragon cave, he would soon be able to stabilize the entire South China Sea Alliance. At that time, the rogue cultivators in the South China Sea would also be under the power of Taishanmen. Everything was a good plan, but it was a pity that they ran into Yang Chen. These people should not have started against the disciples of Chunyang Palace and destroyed the branch of Wanbao Tower, but it attracted Yang Chen and a group of evil stars. Now, a group of evil stars headed by Yang Chen was on the sea not far from the hidden dragon cave. Gong Suanling's ship floated quietly on the sea, and everyone was in the cabin, drinking in silence. Everyone in the Chunyang Palace was ready, and now they were waiting for the people of the South China Sea Alliance to be placed around, so that Yang Chen and others would not be able to escape. With the help of the South China Sea Alliance, this time everyone in the hidden dragon cave could be said to be unable to escape. Seniors, this time, we are not here to reason with the hidden dragon cave. Yang Chen looked at the time and said to the masters who were already eager to try, "The blood of the disciples of the sect can't be shed in vain, blood for blood, Wanbao Tower branch will not be left alive, and the hidden dragon cave will not be left alive." Chapter 8:19. When the hidden dragon cave attacked the Wanbao Tower branch, it was also unreasonable. After the killing was completed, it was announced that Wanbao Tower was bullying the market, and the hidden dragon cave presided over justice. Anyway, it was already a fait accompli. Outside the South China Sea, who would stand up for a rootless Wanbao Tower? Even if Wanbao Tower was just a branch here, and there might be some affiliates outside, but so what? This was the South China Sea, and the hidden dragon cave was the local snake. This Wanbao Tower was not a big sect shop. Who would offend the local snake of the South China Sea for Wanbao Tower? With a high reward, this was possible. However, since it was a business, it was necessary to calculate costs and benefit. To deal with the hidden dragon cave, or a foreign dragon, what kind of price would be paid to hire these masters? A measly little myriad treasure tower was not so wealthy and overbearing yet. It was precisely because of these that the hidden dragon cave would be at ease to start, and even the background of Wanbao Tower was not inquired about. A small business where even the shopkeeper was only in the foundation stage. If it was destroyed, it would be destroyed without any psychological burden. However, the people of the hidden dragon cave did not expect that behind this small roll in their eyes, there was such a terrifying force. Therefore, when a group of evil stars from Chunyang Palace appeared around several islands of the hidden dragon cave, many people didn't even know what happened. The terrifying attack began in an instant, and without any warning, the 10 Yuanying stage masters used their magic weapons to enter the hidden dragon cave. Wherever they went, the disciples of the hidden dragon cave on the periphery were killed and wounded. Yang Chen had already said that there was no need to keep them alive, and the 10 Monster Clan Yuanying stage masters who came out with Yang Chen were originally following Yang Chen to kill people. They would not consider the matter of mercy, and they would be happy to do it. On the periphery of the hidden dragon cave, there was a sudden scream. This was the Rogue Cultivator Alliance, not a formal sect, and the structure was relatively loose. In terms of inheritance, it was even more heterogeneous and impure. There was no systematic inheritance at all. Practically everyone cultivated in a different way. In addition to the high-level members of the Hidden Dragon Cave, who had the support of the Greatest Heaven sect and those advanced cultivation methods, most of the others were cultivation methods that were exchanged from all over the place. A low-level rogue cultivator against a ferocious monster race Yuanying stage master, the result could be imagined. The demon race did not care whether it looked good or not when they killed people. In addition, this time, Yang Chen intended to establish his might, so everyone was even more unscrupulous when they attacked. As soon as they started, they used the most brutal moves. Cultivators might only use a flying sword to pierce through the heart, but these guys tore people into pieces the moment they started. In less than the time it took to burn a stick of incense, on the islands of the Hidden Dragon Cave, there were countless broken limbs, internal organs flying on the ground, and blood flowing. Those who were timid would definitely think that they had arrived at the Blood Sea slaughterhouse, and not a place of cultivation. As for the old tree demon clone and Ho Yun, they still disdained to fight against some guys in the Qi Refining Foundation and Dan stage. These were just cannon fodder for Shi Kuei and Xie Sha to vent their anger. Who dares to behave atrociously in my hidden dragon cave? Yang Chen and Gong Suanling's ship had just arrived at the edge of the main island of the hidden dragon cave, and they heard someone shouting loudly. But immediately after, a series of miserable shrieks could be heard, and no one dared to shout out loud anymore. Yang Chen, is it too much to leave no one alive? Gong Sunling listened to the mournful voice and looked at the flesh and blood scattered on the ground not far away, and suddenly asked. Gong Sunling, after all, was still a woman who had not been tempered in the killing field. She could not compare with Shi Shanshan, who had killed people. Seeing the cruel scene, she would always be a little soft-hearted. When they killed my Wanbao Tower's shopkeeper, I didn't think it was too much. Yang Chen turned his head. If Gong Sunling thought like this every time, Yang Chen was very worried about whether she could survive the catastrophe in the future. I mean, those high-level masters, if they stay, my Mountain River geographical map may have a few more free slaves. Gong Sunling explained with a smile. Now Gong Sunling has called those who have been included in her Mountain River geographical map slaves. In fact, those people are doing the work of slaves, but they don't know it yet. Gong Suanling's words also meant that Yang Chen's worries were not necessary at all. The Gong Sunling of this life was no longer the Gong Sunling of the previous life, and she was getting further and further away from the fate of failing to cross the tribulation and turning into flying ash. Don't worry, there will be opportunities in the future. After confirming that Gong Sunling was not the kind of character that Yang Chen was worried about, Yang Chen smiled and comforted her. Looking at the tragic situation of the disciples of the Hidden Dragon Cave on the island, his heart seemed to have returned to his previous life. 10 Yuanying stage masters besieged the Hidden Dragon Cave. How similar was it to the 8 Yuanying stage masters besieging the Chunyang Palace in his previous life? In his previous life, his master sent Yang Chen away in the siege to avoid humiliation. The memory of his previous life was like a torture that tortured Yang Chen's heart, and now he finally released some. Yang Chen never had the concept of not doing to others what he did not want to do to himself. These were the blood debts owed by the Taishaman in his previous life. In this life, he could only pay with more blood, and there was no other possibility. The shrill screams came one after another. Yang Chen and Gong Sunling had put away the ship and boarded the island. The clone of the old tree demon and Ho Yun also followed, with Yang Chen and Gong Sunling slowly walking along the road on the island into the center of the hidden dragon cave. The four people were hardly blocked at all, and there were body fragments all the way. The main attackers of this island were Shi Kuei and Xiesha. The two ferocious guys did not know how many people's lives were taken when they were in the barren valley. Here, with the instructions of Yang Chen, they showed their fierce, wild nature unscrupulously. Finally, the screams were no longer heard, but the sound of the attack was louder, and the rumbling spread far away. There was no need to ask to know that this was a strong enemy. This was the main island of the hidden dragon cave, and it was inevitable that there would be masters. Countless warnings were sent out. At this moment, the hidden dragon cave was like a beast that had been deeply stabbed, and it finally reacted and began to organize a counterattack. In the distant sky, there were dozens of streamers flashing, and it was a figure flying on a sword, flying in the direction of the main island of the hidden dragon cave. Obviously, this was the master who went out or had a good relationship with the hidden dragon cave around to help. In Ho Yun's hand, there was a shining golden stick. His figure swayed, and he was in the air. He raised the thick and somewhat scary stick high, and slammed it down in the face of more than a dozen streamers flying towards him. Boom! After the thunderous sound, on the ground in front of Yang Chen and Gong Sunling, there were more than a dozen human-shaped pits, and there were a few faint groans of pain. Chapter 820. Ho Yun's stick shot out, and there were still people alive? Yang Chen was very stunned, but immediately understood that this was Ho Yun who heard Gong Sunling's words just now and deliberately left them alive. Which pit was alive and which pit was dead? It was very easy for Yang Chen and Gong Sunling to distinguish. Yang Chen just gently stamped his feet twice, and three guys who were moaning from more than a dozen human-shaped pits popped out. Under Ho Yun's stick, although the three guys had not yet died, their tendons and bones had been broken, and they had no strength to struggle. If it weren't for his strong cultivation base, he would have fainted at this moment. The three guys who were alive were all masters of the Yuanying stage. In Yang Chen's memory, there was no impression of these people. However, this was not a problem for Yang Chen. Since they came to help the hidden dragon cave, or return to help, it was always related to the hidden dragon cave. Now Yang Chen's attitude towards the hidden dragon cave was that he would kill wrongly, and he would not let them go. He took out 3 medicinal pills and stuffed them into the mouths of the 3 guys to ensure that they would not die because of their injuries. Gong Sunling next to him was already prepared, and had skillfully received the 3 people into the mountain river geographical map. The little girl's face was full of a happy smile, and she thanked Ho Yun in the air. "Thank you, Grand Master." According to seniority, Ho Yun and the old tree demon were of the same generation, and Gong Sunling also called Ho Yun as Grand Master. In response to Gong Sunling, it was the whistling sound of the weapon in Ho Yun's hand that was like a giant pillar. In just 1 or 2 moves, the dozens of figures that had just flown back had all disappeared into thin air. Except for the 3 Yuanying stage slaves left for Gong Sunling, the rest of the guys, when they touched Ho Yun's stick, were directly smashed into meat paste, and then flew away without a trace. In the sky, except for Ho Yun's extremely fierce figure, no one could be seen. After circling a few times and not seeing anyone, Ho Yun called out to the 3 people on the ground and rushed into the inner island impatiently. He has been stifled in the Blue Vault Mountain Immortal's cave for tens of thousands of years. The dozens of small lives just now are not enough for him to fill the teeth. Those guys in the inner island are his appetizers. On the way to the inner island, Gong Sunling was overjoyed. In just a short time, there were 3 more Yuanying stage slaves in the mountain river geographical map. It would be easier to refine in the future. How could she not be happy? The doppelganger of the old tree demon didn't seem to be in a hurry, it just slowly followed Yang Chen and Gong's Sunling. Perhaps the nature of trees was not killing. After swallowing the Penglai divine wood, the old tree demon's cultivation had gone up to a higher level, and he had become more stable. Compared to Yang Chen and the other two, who were strolling leisurely, the surrounding environment was completely out of place. Along the way, Shi Kuei and Xie Sha had killed many small minions, and the road was almost full of blood. The original elegant inner island of the hidden dragon cave was now like a slaughterhouse. After the three people slowly walked to the inner island, they saw the ongoing battle. It must be said that the hidden dragon cave, as a spy placed by the Taishaman in the South China Sea, still had a very powerful fighting force. At least Shi Kuei and Xie Sha each had 2 Yuanying stage masters as opponents, and they were fighting in the air. Ho Yun was surrounded by 7 masters, and at first glance, they set up a Big Dipper 7 stars formation, surrounding Ho Yun in the middle. However, Ho Yun's strength was unexpected by everyone. Just the power of the peak Yuanying stage that broke out now made him not fall into a disadvantage in the sword formation. The golden stick has been restored to be thicker than an ordinary stick, but it is not exaggerated, but the power contained in it made the 7 Yuanying stage masters not dare to touch it easily. They could only rely on the flexibility of the formation to attack Ho Yun's vital points and barely maintain the operation of the formation. On the other side of these experts who were fighting, stood 2 fellows with extremely ugly expressions. Yang Chen saw clearly that the 2 were the cave master of the hidden dragon cave, Yueni, and an elder. In his previous life, Yang Chen had been chased by the 2, and he would never mistake them. However, there was no such 7-star sword formation in Yang Chen's memory. The formation turned out to be 7 identical Yuanying stage masters. The 7 faces were not the slightest bit different, and the same cultivation base was almost the same. Even the clothes they wore were the same style, but there was a difference in color. Yuanying stage septuplets, it was simply an incredible thing. In the memory of Yang Chen's previous life, there has never been such a situation, and he didn't know where the hidden dragon cave found the septuplets, and they even knew such a powerful formation. It was estimated that this was the power left by the Taishaman to the hidden dragon cave, otherwise it would not have been frozen in his previous life, so that Yang Chen didn't know about it. Yang Chen has always overestimated the power of the Taishaman, but he still did not expect that there would be no less than a dozen Yuanying stage masters in the hidden dragon cave of the South China Sea Rogue Cultivator Alliance. It can be seen that the power hidden in other places was still unknown. Sure enough, it was worthy of being the largest sect in the Dao sect. After tens of thousands of disciples were destroyed by Yang Chen, there was still such a foundation, and it was still in the case of not showing the mountain and not showing the water. Even Yang Chen couldn't help but say that it was powerful. The septuplets Yuanying stage, their cultivation base was the same, and even their minds were connected. The movements of the 7 people were like one person, and with the help of the Big Dipper 7-star sword formation, even if the realm was only the early Yuanying stage, they were evenly matched with Ho Yun. Fortunately, Ho Yun's posture was not invincible. He just used this 7-star sword formation to familiarize himself with the fighting methods of the cultivators in the world, and forcibly suppressed his strength to the level of the peak Yuanying stage. Even so, Ho Yun's powerful power suppressed the septuplet master. It may have been that there had been a contact with the magic weapon before. One of the septuplet's flying sword was obviously different from the other 6, and it was estimated that it had been destroyed by Ho Yun. Because of this small defect, it seemed that there was a slight flaw in the coordination of the 7-star sword formation. Ho Yun, of course, was sensitive to this flaw, and was desperately chasing this flaw and attacking frantically. The hidden dragon cave master Yueni was behind the formation, and he was shocked and angry. Where did this group of experts come from? They had no enmity with each other, yet they dared to kill the moment they arrived. Several islands repeatedly sent out warnings, but he did not dare to leave to support them. He could only watch helplessly as the disciples on the other islands were slaughtered. When he saw Yang Chen and the other two walking slowly, as if they were sightseeing, Yuweni could not see that Yang Chen was the leader among the crowd, and he immediately shouted and flew over. Chapter 8:21. My hidden dragon cave has no grievances with you. Why do you want to kill my hidden dragon cave? People are still in the air, Yuweni asked Yang Chen sharply, and the angry voice almost spread throughout the main island of the hidden dragon cave. Then what hatred does my Wanbao Tower have with your hidden dragon cave? Yang Chen snorted coldly and immediately responded tit for tat. At this time, he remembered to be reasonable. If there was no grievance and no hatred, what did he do before? Yuweni listened to Yang Chen's words and almost fell to the ground in midair. How could he have thought that a small Wanbao Tower, from the shopkeeper to the shop assistants, would have such a great heritage? If he had known this, he would not have agreed with those little bastards to provoke Wanbao Tower. In fact, in many sects of the Central Plains Dao sects, everyone knows that Wanbao Tower is a business owned by Yang Chen's family. From the moment that Yang Chen became a 5th-grade alchemist master, the Wanbao Tower branches opened in various markets have been regarded as the focus of attention. Who dares to take the idea of Wanbao Tower? This is the South China Sea, where the Rogue Cultivators Alliance is located. It is almost 1,000,000 miles away from the Central Plains Dao sects, and the transmission of news between each other is not so smooth. The news that Yang Chen is a 5th-grade alchemist master has not yet reached here. In the eyes of these rogue cultivators, the disciples of the big sect of the Central Plains Dao sects, even if they are 9th-grade alchemist masters, have nothing to do with them. It is estimated that many people will not leave this archipelago in this life. How can they care about the big shots millions of miles away? To put it bluntly, even the leader of the Taishaman sect, who is known as the leader of the Dao sects, it is estimated that 9 out of 10 people in the South China Sea do not know what his surname is. In this case, the people of the Hidden Dragon Cave have no scruples about dealing with a branch of a small business, who made the things of Wanbao Tower scarce in the South China Sea, and the huge benefits immediately moved people's hearts. Hidden Dragon Cave was ahead. Even if it was not Hidden Dragon Cave, there would be other organizations that would make a move. This is also where Yuweni is depressed. If he had known that Wanbao Tower had such a powerful backer, he would have just conducted his business in an orderly manner. How could he have found such a terrifying enemy? To tell the truth, Yuweni did not pay much attention to the foundation of the Hidden Dragon Cave, but the task assigned by the Taishaman, after this encounter, was extremely difficult. In this southern sea, Yuweni has almost been arranged for more than 100 years. Seeing that as long as he endured for another 100 years, he could control the South China Sea Alliance, thus making great contributions to the Taishaman, and he would become the most powerful person in the South China Sea. Unexpectedly, because of dealing with a small business, or a branch, so many masters killed to the door, the Hidden Dragon Cave was wiped out more than half, and now the masters on the surrounding islands began to gather towards the main island. More than a dozen Yuanying stage masters. He was afraid that they would be doomed today. Even the strength of the septuplets has been pinned down by the powerful enemy, leaving Yuweni himself and another elder, who were by no means the opponents of 7 or 8 Yuanying stage masters. That was a misunderstanding. I am willing to compensate for all the losses of your business, hand over all the murderers, and apologize. When it was time to give in, Yuweni could not hold on, and immediately bowed to Yang Chen and pleaded, "As long as you put forward the conditions, my Hidden Dragon Cave will have no second words. How about a truce between the two sides for the time being? Where there is life, there is no fear of no firewood to burn." Yuweni is also a person who can afford to let go. He made this low posture in an instant. As long as these Yuanying stage masters in front of him were not lost, the power of the Hidden Dragon Cave would not be lost too much, and there would be opportunities to make a comeback in the future. Anyway, as long as he endured for another 100 years, the South China Sea Alliance could be firmly held in his hands. At that time, with the rewards of the Taishanmen and the resources of the South China Sea Alliance, Yuweni was absolutely hopeful to ascend. With ascension as the goal, why should he care about bowing his head a little? Moreover, when the time comes, the power of the Taishanmen and the South China Sea Alliance will be used to deal with this Wanbao Tower. A gentleman's revenge, 100 years is not too late. You always don't shed tears until you see the coffin. If you knew it would be like this, why did you do it in the first place? Yang Chen just snorted coldly and said contemptuously. Yes, I am not strict enough, I am very sorry. Yuweni didn't seem to hear the tone of Yang Chen's contempt. He still smiled and said, I am willing to compensate for your loss 100 times, how about you do it first? When he spoke, he didn't feel that he was a master of the peak Yuanying stage, and called Yang Chen, a junior of the Jedan stage, what was shameful. When this was said, several figures had flown around. They were the masters of the Chunyang Palace Hall of Eccentrics who killed on other islands. As soon as their figures appeared, Shi Kuei and Xie Sha couldn't help shouting in unison, Don't steal our opponents! They shouted, but their hands were more fierce. Their 4 opponents suddenly felt the pressure. 8 masters of the Yuanying stage gathered, plus Yang Chen and Gong Sunling, and an old tree demon clone whose depth could not be seen, Yuweni and the remaining elder of the Hidden Dragon Cave. Their faces also changed several times in succession. If they join the battle group, these secret assets of the Hidden Dragon Cave will all be destroyed in this battle. At this moment, even if they regret it 10,000 times, it is useless. Only by begging Yang Chen to let go of the Hidden Dragon Cave would there be a chance of survival. Yueni's tone was more sincere. This time my Hidden Dragon Cave is wrong. Please look at the face of the South China Sea Alliance. Let go of my Hidden Dragon Cave this time. I will have a generous reward. South China Sea Alliance? Yang Chen mentioned it with a hint of playfulness and asked with some amusement. There is such a big movement here, it is impossible for the South China Sea Alliance not to know, right? But, have you seen a person from the South China Sea Alliance come out? Yuweni was also eager to get away. At first, he didn't notice this. When Yang Chen reminded him, he reacted and his face changed dramatically. The South China Sea Alliance hasn't even come to watch the fun for such a long time. What happened can only be imagined. Your Excellency is so hard to force. Do you really think that my Hidden Dragon Cave has reached the end of the road? When Yuweni realized that Yang Chen must let them die, he no longer spoke in a low voice. His body swayed and he returned to the position just now. He smiled and said, Since this is the case, then don't blame this old man for being cruel and merciless, leave them all to me. I don't know what Yuweni did. In the area where everyone fought, a piece of flat land with a radius of hundreds of feet, the red light flashed under the ground in an instant. Accompanied by Yueni's crazy smile, everyone except Yuweni and the elders around him was suddenly enveloped in it. Chapter 8:22. As soon as the red light came out, the bloody smell became more pungent, and the pieces of corpses on the ground and the blood flowing all over the ground seemed to have suddenly begun to change at this moment. It was as if there was an invisible big mouth that was devouring everything, and the flesh and blood were quickly swallowed without a trace. It was just a while, in addition to the bloody smell, there was no trace of flesh and blood. The 11 Yuanying stage masters who were fighting with Shi Kuei, Xie Sha, and Ho Yun, their faces changed greatly. Regardless of anything else, everyone took out a red medicinal pill from the Qiankuan bag and quickly swallowed it. In the Central Plains Dao sects, basically every sect has a mountain protection formation. Once there is a foreign enemy invasion, it will be launched immediately to keep the foreign enemy out of the formation. However, on the side of the South China Sea, it was difficult to have such a large-scale formation. First, each island was distributed in different places, and it was difficult for the mountain protection formation to accurately protect the island that was needed. Moreover, the island was too small to arrange a large-scale formation. The small formation was not powerful enough to resist the masters, so basically, the rogue cultivator alliances on the side of the South China Sea did not have a mountain protection formation. But this does not prevent some alliances from arranging some small formations on their own main island. The formation of the Hidden Dragon Cave was one of them. However, this red formation seemed to be very evil, full of bloody smell, and when the formation was launched, everyone had a feeling of blood and qi surging. Yang Chen's spiritual awareness was almost the most powerful, and he immediately noticed that the formation was quietly absorbing everyone's blood and qi. This kind of formation was simply not distinguishing between friends and enemies. Even those masters of the Hidden Dragon Cave were also absorbed. But soon Yang Chen discovered that when those guys in the Hidden Dragon Cave took the red medicinal pill, the speed of blood and qi being absorbed suddenly dropped a lot. Compared with the people on Yang Chen's side, it was basically a 1-to-10 comparison. At this time, everyone had discovered the abnormality of their bodies, and they wanted to get out of this formation, but soon found that everyone's body seemed to be connected with this blood-red light to form a red invisible channel. No matter how far people left, they could not get rid of this red channel that was like a tarsal maggot. The whole body's blood and qi were still continuously absorbed by the red light along this red channel. The doppelganger of the old tree demon, who had been motionless with his eyes half closed, suddenly opened his eyes wide and stomped heavily on the ground. Boom! The entire main island seemed to shake. The old tree demon originally thought that his kick would be able to shatter the formation, but he didn't expect that the formation would absorb most of the spiritual power contained in his kick. In turn, it enriched the formation and became stronger. In just a short while, everyone already felt that they were unable to control their blood qi. While fighting, they were also nervous about losing blood qi, which was indescribably uncomfortable. Later, the 8 Yuanying stage cultivators joined the battle without thinking. Only by quickly killing the enemies in the formation could they free up their hands to deal with this strange formation. Not to mention the Hidden Dragon Cave, even if it was the Taishanmen, in such a small area, it was impossible to trap 2 masters of the Deshang stage. This was the idea of everyone, so they were merciless. Kill. The more you kill, the more qi and blood you can replenish, and the stronger the formation will be. Let's see how fast you can kill. Ha 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 ha. Outside the formation, Yueni's gloomy voice accompanied by laughter came into everyone's ears, so that the people who were about to start couldn't help but stop. This kind of evil demonic formation, there was really a saying that the more qi and blood it absorbed, the more powerful it was. In the past, these monster race masters would never believe it, but after studying for a long time in Chunyang Palace, they also learned a lot of common sense of the demonic path, and they were no longer the ignorant monster race who only relied on instinct to fight the world. For a moment, everyone fell into an awkward situation where they didn't know whether to fight or not. Everyone knew that the longer the time dragged, the more unfavorable it would be for their own side, but for a while, no one could break this strange formation. Insignificant skill. After careful study for a while, Yang Chen suddenly sneered and said, "Just like this." As soon as the voice fell, under Yang Chen's feet, a large number of blood-red vines suddenly emerged. The vines grew rapidly, and in a short time, the area shining with red light was completely covered. The blood phantom vine flying sword flew out and slashed at the red channel under Gong Suanling's feet. It was strange that the red invisible channel, which had been fighting with Gong Sunling, broke easily as soon as it met the blood phantom vine flying sword, and the end connected to the formation became connected to the blood phantom vine sword. The flying sword did not stop. According to the order, it slashed at each of the red channels under the feet of the people on the Chunyang Palace side. When it flew back to Yang Chen and cut off the one under Yang Chen's feet, the blood phantom vine flying sword had connected to 14 red channels. The formation that sucked people's blood and chi, after all, was arranged, and then fed with flesh and blood to increase its power. It was not comparable to the blood phantom vine, a plant that was born to suck people's blood. The blood phantom vine sword has absorbed the flesh and blood of several masters of the Deshang stage, and its power was no less than that of the entire formation. The channel connecting everyone was cut off by the blood phantom vine sword, and the blood and chi that was originally absorbed by the formation was in turn absorbed by the blood phantom vine sword. Not only that, but the blood phantom vine, which was all over the ground and suppressed the red light, also began to absorb the blood and chi in the formation. In a short period of time, the original bloody red color became a lot lighter. And everyone could not feel the loss of their own blood and chi, everything seemed to have returned to before. In such a short time, everyone could notice that the blood and chi in their body had been absorbed by about 10%. Fortunately, everyone was a master, and this loss of blood and chi would not be in their eyes. However, in Yu Wenyi's eyes, this scene became another kind of fear. The blood-sucking demonic array, which had always been successful, had no effect. Even the masters of the septuplets Yuanying stage and the seven-star sword formation have been dispatched. There was nothing else that could stop Yang Chen and the others from killing people. The 11 Yuanying stage masters of the Hidden Dragon Cave in the battle group had completely lost confidence at this moment. The other party's 3 people were evenly matched with them, and now there were 8 more Yuanying stage masters. Their fate could be imagined. On Yu Wenyi's face there was a trace of determination, and in an instant, he became ferocious, staring at Yang Chen, and suddenly yelled fiercely, "This is what you forced me to do! This is what you forced me to do! Give me all to die!" Chapter 8:23. A yellow medicinal pill the size of an egg suddenly appeared in Yu Wenyi's hand. Yu Wenyi no longer had any scruples. He opened his mouth and swallowed this medicinal pill into his abdomen. Yu Wenyi's mouth began to emit a burst of screams. The screams of Yu Wenyi were echoed by the 4 opponents of Shi Kuei and Xie Sha. Without the interference of the blood-sucking demonic array, the 8 monster race Yuanying stage masters of Chunyang Palace had nothing to worry about and directly rushed to the 4 people. They did not dare to rob Ho Yun's opponents, but Shi Kuei and Xie Sha's opponents were not so lucky. Originally 2 against 4, Shi Kuei and Xie Sha still had the upper hand, now 10 against 4, the outcome was almost instantaneous. The 4 Yuanying stage masters turned into 4 pools of meat in just one face-to-face encounter, and then they were quickly absorbed by the array, leaving no trace. Ho Yun certainly saw the situation here, and his hands were no longer merciful. The big stick waved, and the power suddenly surged. With just one blow, the 7-star sword array could no longer be maintained and broke apart. The 7 Yuanying stage masters were involuntarily brought by Ho Yun's big stick and gathered in one place. Ho Yun, who jumped high, smashed the huge stick down. The 7 people had no choice but to use the flying sword to resist. With a bang, the 7 flying sword were all broken, and the 7 people were also stunned by the powerful pressure. When he fell to the ground, Ho Yun did not look at the 7 people on the ground, but with a slight pick of the stick, the 7 Yuanying stage masters were picked up in front of Gong Sunling. Gong Sunling happily received the unconscious 7 Yuanying stage masters into the Mountain River geographical map, and then together with Yang Chen, looked at Yu Wenyi who was screaming wildly over there. "You forced me to do this! You forced me to do this!" In Yu Wenyi's mouth, in addition to the screams, there was only this sentence left. As he spoke, Yu Wenyi's body also began to change dramatically. His whole body became red, and his muscles began to swell. After a while, the originally short Yu Wenyi became a big guy comparable to Yang Chen and Ho Yun, and the momentum of his body also increased crazily. The Yuanying stage elder standing next to Yu Wenyi, from the beginning, stood like a wooden stake, motionless, and did not speak. If not for the fact that he was still gasping for breath, everyone would have thought that he was a dead man. But now, Yu Wenyi suddenly grabbed that elder. That elder didn't struggle at all and was helplessly caught in Yuwen's hands. Next, Yuwen did something that the people of the Tao sect could not tolerate. He actually grabbed the elder and brought him to his mouth. Opening its bloody mouth, it bit the elder's neck and began to suck the blood with a sizzling sound. Yang Chen and the others had vaguely formed a circle. No matter which direction Yuwen went, it was impossible for him to escape. There was Ho Yun in the sky, and the roots of the old tree demon clone had quietly covered the entire island. There was no way to go to the sky and there was no door to the earth. However, Yuwen had no intention of escaping at all. He just stared at the blood-red eyes and looked at the people around him, and kept sucking the elder's blood essence in his mouth. The elder who was caught in Yuwen's hands had begun to weaken gradually, and finally became weaker and weaker, and finally disappeared. Throw away the elder who had no life left, Yuwen's breath soared again, and his body swelled a bit. There was still the blood of the elder in his mouth, and at first glance, it was unusually ferocious. Ah! Yuwen suddenly screamed at the sky, and the sound shook for hundreds of miles. The clouds began to pile up wildly in the sky, and the sky, which had just been clear, became cloudy after a while. Interesting. Yang Chen's face showed a playful smile. How familiar this situation was. It was simply a sign that he was going to cross the fire tribulation to achieve the Deshang stage. However, Yuwen did not reach this realm through normal cultivation, but relied on an unknown medicinal pill and swallowed and absorbed the blood essence of another elder to barely attract the tribulation. 10 Yuanying stage monster cultivators, without thinking about it, approached the old tree demon clone directly. The old tree demon did not neglect and directly propped up a shield, covering everyone including Yang Chen and Gong Sunling. Only Ho Yun was left outside, still standing in the air and looking at Yuwen coldly. Such a close observation of the fire tribulation, except for Yang Chen and the old tree demon, it was the first time for others. Ho Yun has passed the fire tribulation, but he has not seen others cross the tribulation at a close distance. Although others have been lucky enough to see Wang Yong cross the tribulation, the distance is not so close. For everyone, this is a rare experience, even for Ho Yun and the old tree demon. At least they can understand what different methods people with different attributes of the 5 elements use to cross the tribulation. The fire began to burn on Yuwen's body. Yuwen of the water attribute seemed to deal with the first fire very easily. It was originally water that restrained fire, and the natural mutual restraint made Yuwen's tribulation look very easy at first. However, everyone knows that this hidden danger of forcibly improving the realm by relying on demonic arts was easy at first and more difficult later. This was only the first fire, and there were 8 full ones behind it. It was by no means so simple. From the beginning of Yang Chen and others, hundreds of miles away, a group of masters of the South China Sea Alliance, led by Bian Shuren and Shu Lanqiu, had already surrounded the sea around the hidden dragon cave. Beside the Bian Shuren couple, there were 3 masters, 2 men and 1 woman, who could not see the depth, but the Bian Shuren couple were very respectful to them. Needless to say, these were the 3 Deshang stage backups of the South China Sea Alliance. At the beginning of the battle, there were no waves. Not to mention the 3 Deshang stage masters, even the Bian Shuren couple could easily detect the movement over there with their spiritual awareness. Seeing that Yang Chen actually brought 12 Yuanying stage masters, even Bian Shuren couldn't help but be a little surprised. This Wanbao Tower didn't show the mountain or the water, but it still had such a background. When everyone gathered on the main island, Yuwen launched the formation, and Bian Shuren didn't worry much. What he meant was that he wanted to send charcoal in the snow when Yang Chen and others were defeated, and use this to win over Yang Chen. Until the last moment, these people of the South China Sea Alliance would never show up. But the next situation surprised Bian Shuren. The blood-sucking demonic array couldn't do anything to Yang Chen and others. Yang Chen relied on a strange flying sword to break the blood-sucking demonic array, which made Bian Shuren extremely curious about the flying sword. When Yuweni began to trigger the fire tribulation, and Yang Chen and others stood by and watched, Bian Shuren finally changed his face. Oh no, how can Yuweni be so easy to cross the tribulation without interference? Once Yuweni succeeds, it will be the death of Yang Chen. Elder, you must save that Yang Chen, otherwise the poison in us will not be lifted. Chapter 8:24. Wait and see. The woman among the 3 Deshang stage elders next to him stopped Bian Shuren's restlessness. He will be fine. What do you mean? Bian Shuren was shocked. Yuweni was promoted to the Deshang stage, and Yang Chen would be fine. What does this mean? Yang Chen was a junior in the middle Jedan stage. There was no doubt about this. Bian Shuren had seen it with his own eyes, and it should not be false. A middle Jedan stage master against a Deshang stage master, it was impossible to survive. The elder said that Yang Chen would be fine, which could only explain one possibility. There was a master of the Deshang stage beside Yang Chen. Thinking of Yuweni's fire tribulation, and Yang Chen and others were watching it so closely, Bian Shuren immediately became more sure that there must be a master of the Deshang stage, who was there to protect him. This time, Bian Shuren and Shu Lanqiu were taken aback. It was incredible that there was a master of the Deshang stage in a small Wanbao tower. Of course, the most incredible thing was that Yang Chen actually became the owner of the Wanbao tower with a middle Jedan stage cultivation base. It was really true that people could not be judged by their appearance. At this moment, there were already countless masters in the South China Sea area. There was a master of fire tribulation, and naturally everyone wanted to watch the ceremony in order to increase their experience. Fortunately, the South China Sea Alliance had already blocked the sea area first. Those who wanted to rush in were all stopped by the South China Sea Alliance. Here, the South China Sea Alliance was the boss. Since the people of the South China Sea Alliance did not let everyone in, then no one dared to go in. Those who thought that they had a face could only come to Bian Shuren first and try to see if they could persuade the Alliance Master to let them in to watch the ceremony. The idea was good, but when they came over, they found that even the Alliance Master and his wife were waiting far away and did not go in. Looking again, there were 3 Deshang stage elders of the South China Sea Alliance next to them. For a while, no one dared to speak again. Who had a big face? Could it be bigger than these 3 elders of the South China Sea Alliance? The fire tribulation has been passed 7 times in a row, and Yuweni's performance has already looked very bad. After all, using demonic methods to forcefully raise one's cultivation realm was not that stable. Now Yuweni's greatest hope was that Yang Chen and others would take advantage of his tribulation to attack him. In this way, the power of the fire tribulation would also be borne by the person who was attacked. In this way, he might be able to take advantage of the chaos to get through it safely. Yang Chen also saw Yuweni's reluctance, and suddenly a whim came to his mind. The old tree demon was able to suppress the fire tribulation for more than a dozen times. Maybe there was a way to guide and disperse the power of the fire tribulation. If this was the case, it could give some benefits to the Yuanying stage masters who came out with him. Old Gui, can you bring down a part of his fire tribulation and let them feel it? Yang Chen also suddenly thought of it and immediately asked the old tree demon for confirmation. Maybe. Old tree demon thought for a moment and immediately gave the answer. After suppressing the fire tribulation for more than a dozen times in a row, no one in the world knew more about the fire tribulation than the old tree demon. Even if Yang Chen had the memory of the great principal golden immortal, he was not his opponent. In a flash, Yuweni's 8th fire tribulation had begun to burn, and his face also showed a look of horror. This time, Yuweni would not be able to take it. Just when Yuweni thought he was going to disappear, a branch that he didn't know where to stick out directly poked his body. This time, the fire tribulation that raged in Yueni's body seemed to have suddenly found an outlet to vent. At least half of the fire tribulation immediately flew out along this branch. Yueni's pressure was reduced a lot. Under the great joy, Yueni immediately forced his spirit and suppressed the 8th fire tribulation. In the shield of the old tree demon, Shikue, Xiesha, and other 10 Yuanying stage masters, each flashed a small fire. Compared with the fire tribulation, the power of this little fire was simply small and pitiful. Even with their Yuanying stage cultivation base, they could completely suppress it. The small group of fire that each person bore was proportional to each person's cultivation base. Just now, what Yang Chun and the old tree demon said, everyone listened to it, and they all understood how enviable the opportunity was in front of them. No one said anything. They raised their cultivation base to the extreme and began to feel the power of this fire. To be able to taste the fire tribulation before crossing the fire tribulation, this was an opportunity that many people dreamed of but couldn't ask for, and now it had come to them. As long as they had the experience of fighting against the fire tribulation, then when they really crossed the tribulation in the future, there would be more ways to deal with the other party. After all, these fires were originally the same as the fire tribulation, but the power was different. It could be said that this time, the 10 Yuanying stage masters who came out with Yang Chen were simply lucky. How difficult it was for a master to cross the fire tribulation, everyone understood. And when they were crossing the tribulation, who would allow others to interfere? Even if others wanted to interfere, without the old tree demon who had a thorough understanding of the fire tribulation, who could easily take it. There was only one consequence of rashly interfering, that was, the person who crossed the tribulation directly failed, and the person who interfered would also be entangled by the fire tribulation. Even if it was the intervention of a master of the Deshang stage, without the level of the old tree demon, it was impossible. At most, they could ensure that they were safe, but the master who crossed the tribulation would definitely die. When idle people crossed the fire tribulation, they would definitely be on guard. How could it be like now? They didn't have to worry about whether the other party could bear it. As long as they took care of their own people, they could be so relaxed. When everyone tried their best to suppress this fire, the 9th fire tribulation began to descend at the same time. Yueni didn't know what happened. He only knew one thing, that was, when he was most desperate, it seemed that someone on Yang Chen's side was very stupid to share his suffering, so that he could survive the 8th fire tribulation. Even in madness, Yueni still hoped that the 9th fire tribulation could also be shared by someone. As long as he passed the fire tribulation, he would be a master of the Deshang stage. These guys in front of him would all die, and they would die in great pain. In Yueni's devout prayer, the 9th fire tribulation came, and at the same time, the life-saving branch appeared again. This time, the power of the fire tribulation was directly shared by a large part, and the remaining bit was enough for Yueni to rely on his current cultivation base to survive. The 9th fire tribulation passed smoothly, and the tribulation clouds in the sky began to disperse rapidly, revealing a clear sky. Yueni in midair was like a different person, staring coldly at Yang Chen and his party, as if staring at a group of dead people. Chapter 825. Yueni's feeling has never been so good. Even if the arrangement of the hidden dragon cave for hundreds of years has been burned, even if strictly speaking, he was the only one left in the hidden dragon cave. But so what? Yueni himself has passed the fire tribulation and became a master of the Deshang stage. All the sacrifices were worth it. Even if the Taishaman knew about it, they would only win over Yueni and would not blame him. What does a master of the Deshang stage mean? Now Yueni knows better than ever. The kind of power that his whole body is full of, the feeling of the improvement of his momentum, the kind of artistic conception that can almost be said to be the law, made him completely addicted to it. This feeling was so wonderful that even when he looked at Yang Chen and others, and was not in a hurry to start. He hoped to see their fear and despair from the eyes of Yang Chen and others. Let the enemy completely lose all confidence, that was the real way to crush the enemy, that was the real enjoyment. In Yuwen's mind, even a beautiful picture has been outlined. Fear and despair occupied all the emotions of Yang Chen and others. In their eyes, as if they were pilgrims, everyone collectively knelt down to him and begged for mercy. After they begged hard, they were mercilessly obliterated by him. He has achieved the Deshang stage. What about the South China Sea Alliance? Even if there is only one person left in the Hidden Dragon Cave, it would be easy to restore the past. Even the future Hidden Dragon Cave would be stronger than before. The plan for the South China Sea Alliance could even be advanced. Although this time he didn't know what benefits these guys in Wanbao Tower gave to the South China Sea Alliance, as long as he took the heads of these people to see Bianshuren, he was not afraid that the Bianshuren would not explain and compensate for this incident. Among the Taishanmen, his own status could also skyrocket. It was really a waste of talent to use a master of the Deshang stage to plot against a rogue cultivator alliance. After returning to Taishanmen, he could also be as powerful as those elders of the Deshang stage and have infinite glory. Thinking of the pride, Yuwen couldn't help laughing. He did not deliberately suppress his laughter. Instead, he deliberately let the sound spread out. Within a radius of hundreds of miles, everyone heard Yuwen's proud laughter. "Ants, the last thing you should have done was to attack me during my tribulation. This is the worst mistake you've ever made in your entire life." Yuwen laughed crazily at the group of people under the protection of the old tree demon, and the last mistake. Oh no! Bianshuren, who was watching the battle from 100 miles away, couldn't help but sigh. Such a good opportunity, even let Yuwen cross the tribulation to reach the Deshang stage. It seemed that the heaven did not kill Yuwen. Even if there was a master of the Deshang stage on Yang Chen's side, but they were also in the Deshang stage. Once Yuwen found that he was not a match and wanted to escape, Yang Chen would never be able to catch up. Although there were 3 masters of the Deshang stage on his side, it was impossible to stop Yuwen, who was determined to escape. Yuwen left today, and the South China Sea Alliance will have endless troubles in the future. You must know that he was a master of the Deshang stage. Once he put down his arrogance and began to use harassment tactics, even the South China Sea Alliance would be helpless. It was impossible to let the 3 elders of the Deshang stage keep an eye on Yuwen all the time, right? One mistake and the whole game would be lost. Even if there was a master of the Deshang stage around Yangchen, if Yuwen was determined to kill Yangchen, it was impossible for the master to guard him all the time. Even if Yuwen was allowed to complete the tribulation without interference, Yang Chen's move was definitely wrong. At that time, it should be a quick and decisive move. Let the master of the Deshang stage attack, completely kill Yuwen, and end it. Why would it be in this embarrassing situation now? Quick, go and surround Yuwen. Bianshuren could only mend the pen after the sheep was lost, and ordered the 3 Deshang stage elders of the South China Sea Alliance. Today, we must not let him escape. The 3 masters also realized the seriousness of the problem, and no one said anything. They quickly flew in 3 directions. Not asking for anything else, just asking Yang Chen's people to hold on there for a while, allowing them to shrink the encirclement. Yuwen's loud laughter continued. The ha-ha-ha-ha sound resounded through the air. Staring at the figures of Yang Chen and others, his face was full of a sarcastic smile. Have you ever seen such a stupid guy? In Yuwen's wild laughter, Yang Chen suddenly turned his head and asked Gong Sunling beside him. No. Gong Sunling shook her head very cooperatively, looking at Yuwen with the same sarcastic eyes, and even with a trace of pity on her face. Poor guy, he must be too happy and crazy. As soon as Gong Sunling's voice fell, the 10 masters of the Yuanying stage, including Shi Kuei and Xiesha, nodded at the same time as if they were sad. With their equally pitiful eyes, the scene made people speechless. Alas, great joy and great sorrow are the taboo of the cultivators. We have to learn a lesson in the future. The old tree demon behind him also did not fall behind, and said with sincerity. The old and prudent words suddenly caused a resonance among the people, and there was a burst of nodding. Yuweni was almost angered by the performance of Yang Qin and others. At the moment, he no longer cared about the scene of begging for mercy, and shouted at Yang Qin and others, "Ants, give me your life." Just shouting, Yang Qin raised his hand and pointed behind Yuweni. Then, Yuweni heard a whistle behind him, and then Ho Yun's voice fell into his ears. "Hey, you're not an ant. Your opponent is me. I've been waiting for you for a long time." Ho Yun did wait for Yuweni for a long time. For Ho Yun, the enemy of the Yuanying stage, was not satisfying at all. He waited until Yuweni reached the Deshang stage before he planned to start. He didn't expect Yuweni to talk so much nonsense. He didn't notice his existence for a long time. "I'll kill you first." Yuweni was furious. He screamed and rushed towards Ho Yun. The flying sword also appeared above his head with his figure, waiting for a sword to pierce the heart and completely solve Ho Yun. Ho Yun's eyes lit up, and the big stick in his hand was swung with all his strength. With a whistling wind, it appeared on the top of Yuweni's head in an instant. Yuweni's flying sword made a thunderous sound, and Yuweni's flying sword was directly smashed into pieces by Ho Yun's stick. The remaining power of the big stick that fell high has not disappeared, and it fell straight on Yuweni's head. Bang! The head of Yuweni, a new master of the Deshang stage, was like a ripe watermelon that was hit. The whole thing burst open, and the blood splashed. Ho Yun took Yuweni's little life with just one move. Yuweni's body of the Deshang stage fell directly into the spreading blood demon vine underground and became the best flower fertilizer. The people of the South China Sea Alliance who were paying attention to this side, at this moment, all looked like they had seen a ghost. They were stunned and could no longer say anything. Chapter 8:26. The tall guy, who looked abnormally strong, actually smashed Yuweni's head and flying sword into a rotten watermelon? Was the scene that was just explored by spiritual awareness a dream? No matter how unbearable Yuweni was, he was also a master of the Deshang stage who was promoted under the eyes of everyone. How could he not stop the big guy? How high was the cultivation base of that big guy? When Ho Yun was in the Blue Vault Mountain Immortal's cave, he was a master of hiding his aura. If it wasn't for the fact that it was impossible to have a master lower than the Deshang stage in the Deshang stage area, even if the old tree demon went in, he would not see that Ho Yun was a master of the Deshang stage at first glance. Even in the process of fighting with the septuplets of the Hidden Dragon Cave, except for the people in Chunyang Palace, including the South China Sea Alliance in the Hidden Dragon Cave, everyone thought that Ho Yun was just a master of the peak Yuanying stage at first. Even up to now, Ho Yun has not released the aura of the Deshang stage. Others still thought that Ho Yun was just a peak Yuanying stage master. In this world, there were many geniuses, and the things of beating opponents were like the stars in the sky. They were countless. However, a person in the peak foundation stage defeating the early Jedan stage, or a person in the peak Jedan stage defeating the early Yuanying stage, that was still something that everyone could imagine. The problem was that Ho Yun was now at the peak Yuanying stage and defeated the early Deshang stage. The gap between each realm, no one was clearer than these masters of the Deshang stage and the Yuanying stage. Originally, they thought that Yuweni might escape and become a big problem for everyone, but they didn't expect the shock to come so suddenly. They didn't even let everyone appreciate the process of a well-matched battle, and it was finished with a stick. The people of Wanbao Tower, whether it was because they needed to refine the antidote or not, they couldn't provoke them casually now. These people were really too fierce. In the Hidden Dragon Cave, in less than 3 hours, 15 Yuanying stage masters were killed. Even Yuweni, who was promoted to the Deshang stage, was no exception, and there were only 11 people on this side. The strength of these people was unparalleled. This was still the scene where everyone didn't know that the old tree demon increased the experience of the fire tribulation for everyone, otherwise their jaws would definitely drop. Not to mention everyone's astonishment, the people of Chunyang Palace were not surprised at all. This was a matter of course. If Ho Yun couldn't even deal with a guy who could pass the fire tribulation by cheating, then his combat power was really too bad. Yueni's body became the fertilizer for the Blood Demon Vine and the Blood Demon Vine Sword. The Blood Demon Vine Flying Sword once again absorbed the blood of a Deshang stage master, and the quality seemed to be a little better. The Blood Phantom Vine was nourished by the Deshang stage master's flesh and blood, and its vitality was restored a lot. From the moment Yueni was smashed into a rotten watermelon with a stick, Yang Chen's dealing with the Hidden Dragon Cave was completely drawn to an end. The high-level members of the Hidden Dragon Cave were all killed. Even if there were fish that escaped the net, they were just small fish and shrimp. They were not qualified enough for the Taishaman to win over. This was a gathering place for rogue cultivators. Soon, these small fries and shrimps would become the disciples of other rogue cultivator alliances. From this moment on, the Hidden Dragon Cave was removed from the South China Sea. He believed that after the news of the destruction of the Hidden Dragon Cave spread, there were two things that everyone would keep in mind. One was that, in the future, someone would set up a rogue cultivator alliance, and it would never be called the Hidden Dragon Cave. Another thing was that when they encountered the Wanbao Tower in the future, it would be best to behave well, and never think about stealing, or even murder for money. That was not to kill other people's lives for money, and in the end, it was definitely themselves who lost both money and money. The next time was the time to harvest the spoils of war. The disciples who were killed in the Hidden Dragon Cave, all their Qiankuan bags should be turned over as much as possible and collected together. In addition, the Hidden Dragon Cave has been entrenched on these islands for hundreds of years, and there will definitely be warehouses for storing resources. Now all these things belong to the Wanbao Tower. At least in the eyes of outsiders, the people of the Hidden Dragon Cave destroyed the Wanbao Tower's branch and plundered all the property. Now the people of the Wanbao Tower came to destroy the Hidden Dragon Cave, and they definitely did the same thing. There were people from the South China Sea Alliance blocking the periphery, and no one could come in and pick up the ready-made benefits. Even if the South China Sea Alliance's blockade was weak, no one dared to rush in casually. The fate of the newly promoted Deshang stage master Yueni was in front of them. If anyone was impatient to live, they could try it. It wasn't until Yang Chen and others cleaned up and all the spoils of war were plundered that the Bianshuren couple came to Yang Chen's side together. The three Deshang stage masters and other people who blocked the Hidden Dragon Cave did not come close, for fear of causing a misunderstanding with Yang Chen and others. At this moment, there was no need to complicate matters. Congratulations to Mr. Yang for getting revenge and getting justice for your branch's shopkeeper and staff. Of course, they had to congratulate him. Bianshuren and Shu Lanxiu came with this purpose. Thank you for the support of the Alliance, Master. Yang Chen responded with a smile, and then immediately said the question that the Bianshuren couple were most concerned about. Thanks to the blessings of the two of you, I have just found the right medicinal materials in the Qiankuan bag of those people in the Hidden Dragon Cave. Wait a few days, I will immediately refine the antidote for your son and everyone. Hearing Yang Chen's words, the Bianshuren couple's hearts finally fell back into their stomach. They were afraid that Yang Chen would say that there were no suitable medicinal materials found here, and they could only solve the problem by returning to the Central Plains Dao Sex. Although the poisoning was not deep now, after all the high-level people were poisoned. Who knows if these slight poisons would have any hidden dangers, or the antidote would make people feel a lot more relieved. Once Yang Chen said that he was going to return to the Central Plains, who knows how things would develop in the future. Now this result was just right. Alliance Master Bien, I don't know if the South China Sea Alliance is interested in these islands? Yang Chen looked at the islands of the Hidden Dragon Cave, where there were no more living people, thought for a moment, and began to ask Bianshuren's opinion. If the Alliance Master is interested, this junior is willing to sell at a suitable price. Yang Chen's words made the Bianshuren couple's eyes light up again. Although the islands occupied by the Hidden Dragon Cave were not the best islands, this main island was very rich in spiritual power, and the Hidden Dragon Cave had been operating for hundreds of years. It was simply a ready-made place for cultivation, and it was also a ready-made alliance location. In the past, the Hidden Dragon Cave was occupied, and even if the South China Sea Alliance wanted these islands, they couldn't get it. After all, everyone had not yet reached the point of falling out. Now these islands were ownerless. If Yang Chen and the others took them down, they would belong to Yang Chen and the others. Since Yang Chen was willing to transfer, they could get it at the price of some spirit stone resources, which was too cost-effective. Chapter 8:27. Interested? Bianshuren hurriedly said, "Mr. Yang, please offer a price. My South China Sea Alliance will not bargain." Yang Chen detoxified them, which was a life-saving grace, plus a complete cultivation place. As long as it was not a request that would hurt the South China Sea Alliance, Bianshuren would never refuse. If that's the case, then this junior will not be polite. Yang Chen also knew that if he didn't let Bianshuren bleed a little, Bianshuren himself would feel sorry, and may even doubt the authenticity of the antidote Yang Chen gave them, and then have more doubts about Yang Chen's purpose. This site, Alliance Master Bian can use some of the South China Sea specialties to exchange. Yang Chen said with a smile. The island was useless to take it down by himself, so it could be used to exchange for some specialties from the South China Sea. But after thinking about it, he added, if there are some special fire seeds and miscellaneous books here, this junior will also accept it. Just as the things of the Central Plains Dao Sex are valuable, the things produced in the deep sea of the South China Sea are also a good deal for the Central Plains Dao Sex, and Wanbao Tower can also make a lot of money. Hearing that the specialty of the South China Sea could be exchanged for the industry of the Hidden Dragon Cave, Bianshuren had no reason to disagree. As for the quantity, there is no need for Yang Chen to mention more. As long as the South China Sea Alliance can find it, it will definitely trade fairly, and will never let Wanbao Tower suffer a loss. The end of the Hidden Dragon Cave was right in front of them, and no one would want to find trouble with it. As for the fire seeds, it was even less of a problem. Here, above the vast sea, most people were of the water attribute. Some high-level and low-level fire seeds were almost in a state of no interest. Yang Chen even accepted these. Even according to the market here, the fire seeds could be sold at a good price. Maybe in the future, Wanbao Tower can establish a long-term cooperation with your alliance. After the deal was settled, Yang Chen and the Alliance Master Bian talked about another thing. Wanbao Tower will use the production of the Central Plains Dao Sex in exchange for the specialty of your alliance in the South China Sea. This was a long-term collaboration. Wanbao Tower's branch had suffered a loss this time. It was located far away from the South China Sea. It would be difficult to ensure the safety of the branch if it was established there. The South China Sea could not be compared to the Central Plains Taoist sect, but by exchanging the products of the Central Plains for the specialties of the South China Sea without establishing a branch, he could still earn huge profits. At the same time, he would have an additional partner. To Yang Chen, it was killing two birds with one stone. In this way, Wanbao Tower earns high profits from the South China Sea specialties in the Central Plains, and the South China Sea Alliance earns high profits from the Central Plains output in the South China Sea. Everyone gets rich together, and this cooperative relationship will last longer. The two sides hit it off on this matter. The South China Sea Alliance has no channels in the Central Plains, but it has a large number of South China Sea specialty resources. The Wanbao Tower was in a similar situation. Both parties exchanged their towers, but it saved them the risk of long-distance operations. At most, it only increased the risk of transportation. Both parties were very satisfied with this. The only one who was dissatisfied was Ho Yun. He had followed Yang Chen out to kill, but in the end, he had only killed one. Although the most powerful master of the Deshang stage was killed, Ho Yun was very unsatisfied. When Yang Chen helped the South China Sea Alliance refine medicinal pills, the South China Sea Alliance was raising enough resources to pay for the purchase of the Hidden Dragon Cave industry. The largest rogue cultivator alliance in the South China Sea wanted to annex the foundation of the Hidden Dragon Cave, and no one dared to say anything. In addition, the people in the Hidden Dragon Cave that other people found were uprooted by a group of unknown masters in one fell swoop. Even the cave master Yuweni, who was promoted to the Deshang stage, was no exception. Those who knew were naturally silent. In only 4 or 5 days, Yang Chen had completed the refining of the antidote. In the words of Gong Sunling, a 5th-grade alchemist refining this simple antidote was really a bit of a waste. If Bian Shuren knew the identity of Yang Chen in the future, he would definitely feel honored, and it was also estimated that he would feel abnormal regret. Yang Chen personally refined medicinal pills for outsiders, which was a good thing that even Taishaman couldn't ask for now, but the South China Sea Alliance encountered it. But the 5th-grade alchemist master actually only refined this simple antidote, which was simply a waste of natural resources. If it was known by the people of the Central Plains Dao sects, they would definitely beat their chests and stamp their feet. The opportunity that Yang Chen was willing to help was wasted on this, and the South China Sea Alliance would definitely regret what they had missed. However, Yang Chen and others waited here for a full month. Within a month, the South China Sea Alliance almost emptied the market and the South China Sea Alliance's own inventory, and all the masters came out to search and collect in the surrounding sea area. Finally, they collected what they thought was enough, and then they came to trade with Yang Chen. It was originally a free site. Even without these things, Yang Chen would give it up. Now that there were so many benefits for no reason, Yang Chen was naturally happy. After the transaction was completed, the senior executives of the South China Sea Alliance and Bian Yong each took the antidote made by Yang Chen. 2 days later, the disease was eliminated, the whole body was relaxed, and there was no more worry. Both sides were also happy, and at the same time, they opened the prelude to long-term cooperation in the future. The harvest of the previous killing in the Hidden Dragon Cave has been divided up by Yang Chen and everyone. At this point, Yang Chen has never treated his own people badly. Even the harvest this time, Yang Chen's intention was to distribute all of it to everyone. However, everyone did not accept it. They just selected a batch of things that they were interested in, and all the rest were handed over to Yang Chen. Several kinds of fire seeds unique to the deep sea were collected from submarine volcanoes and other places. Many of them were 3rd-grade and 4th-grade fire seeds, which Yang Chen couldn't get in the Central Plains, and now they were also in his pocket. There were almost tens of thousands of volumes of miscellaneous books, which made the people of the South China Sea Alliance very strange. They didn't know what Yang Chen wanted these useless things that could only be used for entertainment. Yang Chen didn't explain, but just accepted it himself. Knowing that Yang Chen liked alchemy, the South China Sea Alliance even generously gave Yang Chen a copy of the alchemy materials of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance, so that Yang Chen could learn more systematically. Yang Chen also carefully studied these deep-sea specialties, especially some of the medicinal materials. In terms of using deep-sea medicinal materials, the Rogue Cultivator Alliance, which has been in the South China Sea, is obviously more adequate than the Central Plains Dao sects, which also gives Yang Chen a lot of learning opportunities. Among these massive medicinal materials obtained, one of them caught Yang Chen's attention. To be exact, it was Xiao Tian's attention. This reddish-brown herb is not very conspicuous among the dry medicinal materials. It has a very interesting name, called dragon tongue orchid, named after the shape of a creature's tongue. However, Xiao Tian clearly felt a very weak dragon qi from this medicinal material called dragon tongue orchid. Chapter 828. Yang Chen only found the dragon qi in the treasure house of the Dragon Palace. Now Xiao Tian has found that there is an extremely weak dragon qi in this dragon orchid. What does this mean? There was only one explanation. The place where this dragon orchid grows, there is something that releases the dragon qi, which will cause the dragon orchid to absorb some weak dragon qi. If Yang Chen doesn't go to see this kind of thing, he would not be Yang Chen. Even if not for himself, for the sake of Xiao Tian, Yang Chen had to go in person. However, the large group of people and horses could not be taken with them now. First, the hidden dragon cave has been eliminated, and there is basically no place for them to use force. Second, Shi Kuei and Xie Sha have just received 2 baptisms of Yin fire, and they need to retreat to digest it. It is unreasonable to pull them to work hard and disturb people's cultivation. The old tree demon will go to the 100,000 mountains in a few years, and now it is time to go back. Only Ho Yun, who is free and has not had enough fun, is left to follow. As for Gong Sunling, she must follow Yang Chen, this is beyond doubt. A good distribution plan, the old tree demon rushed back to Chunyang Palace with everyone. Gong Sunling directly lent the ship to the old tree demon. The 10 Yuanying stage masters could retreat directly on the ship. With the old tree demon in charge, she believed that no one could disturb them. The things in the hidden dragon cave were taken back by the old tree demon, and when they were handed over to Shanghai Feng, they could definitely make a lot of money. The cooperation between the two sides also required the old tree demon to tell the news to Shanghai Feng. Yang Chen and Gong Sunling were looking for Bianshuren to ask where the dragon orchid was planted, so that they could find it and find clues. According to Bianshuren, there were not many medicinal materials like dragon orchid, and the place to pick them was very far away, but it was dangerous. Compared to the value of dragon orchid, it was not worth picking it. The only ones were brought back by some masters when they went there to work. This is reasonable, at least Yang Chen thinks it is reasonable. Where there is dragon qi, it is impossible to be very close to the archipelago of the South China Sea Alliance, otherwise someone would have discovered the secret of dragon qi. However, to Yang Chen's surprise, the place where the tequila grows turns out to be in a place where everyone in the South China Sea Alliance changes their faces. That sea was called the Sea of No Return. Within the Sea of No Return, not only are there countless fierce monster beasts, but there is also a powerful current. If ordinary cultivators enter, before the monster beasts can make a move, they will be swept and torn apart by the powerful current. So far, the information people know about the Sea of No Return is limited to the periphery of the Sea of No Return. As for what is inside, no one knows. In other words, no living person knows that no one who has gone deep into the Sea of No Return has ever come back alive. In his previous life, Yang Chen also knew about this dangerous place, but he had never been there. Now that Bianshuren told him about this, Yang Chen was hesitant about whether he should take Gong Sunling to take the risk. Just hearing the name of the Sea of No Return, Ho Yun seemed very excited. In the Blue Vault Mountain Immortal's cave, he has been improving his realm step by step all the way, but he has not experienced many battles. He originally hoped that this time he could let Ho Yun fight a few battles, but he only killed Yu Wenyi, who had just been promoted to the Deshang stage, and he was still promoted to the Deshang stage by the old tree demon's cheating method, which made him very unhappy. When he heard that there were countless powerful monsters in the Sea of No Return, Ho Yun's eyes immediately shone. On one side was the dragon qi discovered by Xiao Tian, on the other side was Ho Yun's desire to fight. Yang Chen considered it and finally decided to go. However, Yang Chen has already calculated that Ho Yun and Gong Sunling would go to the periphery of the Sea of No Return to find fierce sea beasts to fight. On the one hand, it would make Ho Yun happy, on the other hand, it would allow Gong Sunling to capture more masters to fill in the Mountain River geographical map. So far, this time out of the South China Sea, there have been 10 more Yuanying stage masters in Gong Suanling's Mountain River geographical map, all of which were captured by Ho Yun, and the two cooperated very well. He didn't know why, but Ho Yun was very congenial to Gong Sunling, and it seemed that he was trying his best to meet Gong Suanling's requirements. Perhaps this had something to do with Yang Chen. In any case, the three entered the shuttle together and embarked on the road to the Sea of No Return. From here to the Sea of No Return, it was almost the distance from the Central Plains to the South China Sea Islands, and it would take several months on the road. Ho Yun has always been puzzled about the power of Yang Chen. At the beginning of the road, Ho Yun challenged Yang Chen. "Kid, let's compare strength, how about it?" Ho Yun has never had much contact with others. Even if he joined Chunyang Palace, his communication with outsiders was very good. He never felt that there was anything wrong with him, a master of the Deshang stage, challenging Yang Chen, a young man in the middle Jedan stage. It's just the power of the physical body, you can't use spiritual power, you can't rely on the realm to suppress people. Hearing Ho Yun's challenge, Yang Chen's eyes lit up and he also became spirited. Yang Chen was also interested in Ho Yun's great strength. Yang Chen was not very clear about how much strength Ho Yun, who was the great ape king, had, but the huge stick that was refined by Ho Yun's own tail was full of weight. Without the power of thousands of jin, he couldn't pick it up at all, let alone wave it. One was the great ape king, the other was a human who had cultivated the yellow turban strongman body refining technique and had reached the realm of mountain picking strength. At the same time, they both wanted to understand the strength of each other. As soon as Ho Yun challenged, Yang Chen immediately accepted the challenge. "Good." Ho Yun patted Yang Chen's shoulder with a little habit. "Refreshing, you are more refreshing than old Gui." I shouted at him several times and he ignored me. A guy who is afraid of losing. "You are my favorite kid." As he said, Ho Yun stretched out his arm and put it on the table and said to Yang Chen, "Simple arm wrestle. Little Ling, you judge." Yang Chen also put his hand on the table and shook it with Ho Yun. Just like this, they felt the power from each other's hands and they all had the excitement of meeting their match. Gong Sunling was also eager to see the world in chaos. Her slender hand grabbed the hands of the two people who were holding together and put them in the middle. She smiled and ordered, "Ready, start." With the order of Gong Sunling, the muscles on the arms of the two burly men began to bulge and the blue veins appeared. There was a faint cracking sound from the place where the two people held hands, and it seemed that the bones of both sides also began to make sounds. Fortunately, the table under the arm was part of the shuttle, which was extremely hard and could withstand the great strength of the two people without shaking at all. In the eyes of Gong Sunling, who helped Yang Chen, Yang Chen's arm slowly began to press down Ho Yun's arm. Chapter 829. There was still a gap between the two. Yang Chen had a slight advantage, and then this advantage was getting bigger and bigger. Finally, Yang Chen screamed and pressed Ho Yun's arm on the table. Her husband won against the senior. Gong Sunling beamed with joy. Although she did not celebrate because of Ho Yun's face, the happiness from the heart could not be hidden. Ho Yun's face was full of disbelief, and he looked at Yang Chen as if he was looking at a monster. He was originally the mighty ape king. He was born with the power of thousands of kilograms. In addition to the tempering of his body, he thought that his physical strength had reached an incredible level, but he did not expect that he would be defeated by Yang Chen in the aspect that he was most proud of. Although it was just a simple little game of arm wrestling, it did not discount the superiority and inferiority of the strength between the two. Ho Yun actually lost to Yang Chen in physical strength. The mighty ape king lost to a human cultivator in strength, and it was only a cultivator in the middle Jedan stage. Yang Chen's body refining technique had now reached the peak of the mountain picking strength and would soon enter the realm of the river turning strength. This kind of body refining technique of the immortal world was many times better than the tempering of the body when Ho Yun only relied on instinct and the improvement of the realm. Just to take care of Ho Yun's face, he did not instantly press his wrist down, otherwise Ho Yun would definitely be very ugly. How is it possible? Ho Yun almost screamed out. The unprecedented sense of frustration made him suddenly feel that his cultivation was simply meaningless. Even a human cultivator could suppress him in pure physical strength. What future was there for this cultivation? The body refining technique of this younger generation junior is not an ordinary body refining technique. Yang Chen smiled and explained, in this world, perhaps only the Manchu giant elephant in the late Deshang stage can surpass the strength of this younger generation junior. Senior does not have to be surprised. What kind of body refining technique is so powerful? Can I cultivate it? Ho Yun didn't care about any etiquette, and never felt that it was shameful for a senior to ask the younger generation for advice, so he immediately asked. Of course, Yang Chen didn't mean to be selfish. The yellow turban strongman body refining technique was originally a cultivation method with extremely harsh conditions. It was not easy to meet one of his own people with such conditions. Of course, he would let him cultivate and strengthen his own strength. However, if you want to cultivate it, Martial Uncle Master has to promise me a condition. Before taking out the body refining technique, Yang Chen still made a condition. What conditions? Ho Yun didn't care about anything else and only cared about the content of the conditions. Martial Granduncle, you must absolutely ensure Ling's safety. Yang Chen pulled Gong's Sunling and stood in front of Ho Yun. This time to the sea of no return, there are many dangers. Martial Uncle must ensure Ling's safety. I don't need you to tell me that. Ho Yun rolled his eyes at Yang Chen. Unless I die, no one can hurt Xiao Ling. With Ho Yun's guarantee, Yang Chen was relieved to explore the sea of no return this time. Holding the jade slip of the copied yellow turban strongman body refining technique, Yang Chen handed it to Ho Yun. According to Yang Chen's estimation, Ho Yun's physical strength was already equivalent to Yang Chen's cultivation to the middle stage of the 10,000 gene strength, which absolutely met the requirements of the yellow turban strongman body refining technique. However, Ho Yun was now in the Deshang stage and his body had been tempered by 2 heavenly tribulations. Compared with Yang Chen, the difficulty of cultivation may be much higher. But even so, Ho Yun still began to cultivate the yellow turban strongman body refining technique in the mortal world. Compared with cultivating in the immortal world, it was not known how many advantages there were. Although Ho Yun's body refining technique was given to him, Yang Chen still felt that it was necessary to strengthen Ho Yun's combat effectiveness in order to better protect Gong's Sunling. After thinking about it, he simply took out a jade bottle containing the 10th water true essence and handed it to Ho Yun at the same time. What is this? Ho Yun was not polite at all. He took it directly and opened it. In an instant, he found out what was in the jade bottle. His eyes widened and he looked at Yang Chen even more incredulously. I believe that with the help of this, the predecessor can cultivate to the realm of the 10,000 gene strength faster. Yang Chen pointed to the yellow turban strongman body refining technique and explained. The 10,000 gene strength only indicated a realm of the body refining technique, which was relative to the most basic conditions for cultivation. In actual cultivation, it meant that at least 10 times the physical strength would be improved in this realm. He believed that as long as Ho Yun could successfully cultivate the first layer, his combat effectiveness would be enough to increase by at least 2 times. This was the real power. The increase of twice the combat effectiveness was still a conservative estimate, but even so, Yang Chen was still worried about the sea of no return, for fear that Gong's Sunling would be hurt. This time to explore the sea of no return, Yang Chen did not intend to take Gong's Sunling and Ho Yun into the depths of the sea of no return, but wanted the two to find trouble with those powerful sea beasts on the periphery. As for Yang Chen himself, he must enter the interior of the Sea of No Return. Although the dragon tongue orchid could be collected from the outside, the weak dragon chi was definitely escaped from the interior of the Sea of No Return. Ho Yun was given the 10th Water True Essence, but Yang Chen did not give him the 10th Water True Secret Art. The monster race had their own means to absorb the 10th Water True Essence, and there was no need for Yang Chen to do anything. Moreover, the process of absorbing the 10th Water True Essence was also a process of refining the body, which could promote the cultivation of the Yellow Turban Strongman Body refining technique. The next step was to hurry all the way. Ho Yun quietly cultivated the body refining technique, and Yang Chen was also controlling the profound spirit furnace to absorb the newly received seabed fire seed. Gong Sunling still took on the job of taking care of Yang Chen, and the regular wine and dishes made Yang Chen eat with a smile. Ho Yun, who was immersed in cultivation, had no time and no interest in enjoying this kind of happiness between the two. Yang Chen's estimation was not wrong. With the help of the 10th Water True Essence, Ho Yun only took half a year to complete the cultivation of the Yellow Turban Strongman Body refining technique, which was several times faster than Yang Chen in the past. However, the speed of Ho Yun's body refining technique cultivation ended here. This time, with the help of the 10th Water True Essence, he completed the first layer of the body refining technique. In the future, his cultivation speed would definitely be much slower than that of Yang Chen. Ho Yun, who had completed his cultivation, had once again skyrocketed, and he was even thicker than Yang Chen. The surging force was emitted between his hands and feet, as if he could cause an invisible wind pressure with just a wave of his arm. Good cultivation method. Ho Yun was familiar with his current strength, and he couldn't help but sigh with some regret. If I had met you a few thousand years earlier. Only those who have cultivated the Yellow Turban Strongman Body refining technique will know the power of this body refining technique. It was a pity that Ho Yun still cultivated late, otherwise like Yang Chen, the strength of each realm was definitely more than 10 times or 20 times. The later the cultivation, the smaller the future achievements. Ho Yun sighed. The shuttle was almost close to the edge of the Sea of No Return. Chapter 830. This is the Sea of No Return? Gong Sunling looked at the endless calm sea, and it was really impossible to associate this calm sea with the dangerous name of the Sea of No Return. Ho Yun next to her frowned and stared closely at the bottom of the water, as if there would be a fierce sea beast suddenly jumping up. Under the calm sea, there are countless dangers hidden. Gong Sunling can't find it for the time being, but it doesn't mean that Ho Yun can't find it. This is only the outermost periphery of the Sea of No Return, and in fact, it has not yet reached the sea area of the Sea of No Return. Although the Sea of No Return is only a part of the South China Sea, it also includes tens of thousands of miles of sea area, and now it is just touching the edge. Let's separate here. Looking at the calm sea, Yang Chen turned his head and looked at Gong Sunling and Ho Yun again, and said slowly. After Ho Yun completed his cultivation, Yang Chen told Gong Sunling and Ho Yun about his plans, and the three of them would act separately. He would go to the depths of the Sea of No Return to explore, while Gong Sunling and Ho Yun would hunt sea beasts on the periphery. After hearing Yang Chen's plan at first, Gong Sunling's first reaction was to disagree. What she meant was to die together and go in together. But soon, under the persuasion of Yang Chen, she agreed to Yang Chen's plan. There are many things, with Ho Yun there, Yang Chen did not say too much detail. The Sea of No Return is definitely related to the Dragon Clan. Even if it is dangerous, he believes that since he got so many good things from the Dragon Palace treasure house, plus the dragon son Yazi Shao Tian, there should not be too much problem. However, if he wants to take Gong Sunling with him, Yang Chen may not be able to do it alone and may not be able to take care of her. It is possible to let Gong Sunling and Ho Yun stay in his own medicine garden or in the Dome Hall, but for some reason, Yang Chen always has a bad feeling, so he abandoned this method. For Gong Sunling and Ho Yun, this exploration in the depths of the sea of no return was unnecessary, so Yang Chen didn't want them to take risk. Originally, this was not the adventure in Yang Chen's plan, but because of Xiao Tian, Yang Chen had to come and see it anyway. The closer to the sea of no return, the more intense the reaction of Xiao Tian in the medicine garden. It seems that there is something in it that strongly attracts Xiao Tian to move forward, to the depths of the sea of no return. It is already imperative. Ho Yun was of the water attribute, so he had no problem carrying Gong Sunling. Originally, Yang Chen also intended to give the shuttle to Gong Sunling, but Gong Sunling refused. She knew the ability and speed of Yang Chen's shuttle in the water. With the shuttle, Yang Chen's safety in the sea of no return will be greater. The two sides parted ways, and Yang Chen drove the shuttle and quickly rushed to the depths of the sea of no return. In order to prevent any entanglement of sea beasts, Yang Chen took out the demon power crystal left by Lan Ning while flying. The demon power crystal of the sea race, who ascended to the Deshang stage, in the ocean, it was a passport-like existence. No sea beast dared to attack Yang Chen. The kind of deep engraved in their instincts made the sea beasts along the way tremble in fear, not to mention attacking Yang Chen. They didn't even dare to show their faces. The unimpeded flight all the way, at first it was still above the sea, but after flying for 2 days, there was a huge suction force under the sea, sucking Yang Chen and the shuttle into the sea. Entering the water, even through the shuttle, Yang Chen could feel the power of the terrifying ocean currents underwater. The terrifying ocean currents formed for unknown reasons, carrying a force to tear everything and wrap everything, rolled up the shuttle and dragged it to the unknown bottom of the sea. The powerful suction in the ocean currents, Yang Chen was even sucked into the sea in the air, barely able to control the direction a few times, but it was an extremely costly thing. The magic weapon of the Dragon Clan was powerful, especially the magic weapon stored in the treasure house of the Dragon Clan. Although the shuttle was not a magic weapon for body protection, it was not comparable to the protection of the Golden Bell. However, when it was in the water, the shuttle was like a swimming fish. Even if it was swept by the ocean currents, it could not help but sink to the bottom of the sea, but it had always maintained a rare state of balance. Yang Chen did not feel a little dislocation. The performance of the shuttle made Yang Chen's heart calmer and confirmed his previous guess. The interior of the Sea of No Return was definitely related to the Dragon Clan. There was no doubt about this, and Yang Chen's guess that the Dragon Clan magic weapon could also pass through here without any hindrance was also confirmed. The ocean currents had a certain regularity and seemed to flow in a certain direction. Yang Chen tried to control the shuttle and changed several different directions with difficulty and determined this. In the end, he simply gave up controlling the shuttle and let the ocean currents take him in a certain direction. Even in such a terrifying ocean current, Yang Chen still detected the existence of countless powerful sea beasts. The more extreme the environment, the easier it was to create some powerful guise. Mu Bo was like this, the old tree demon was also like this, and the same was true for these guys that Yang Chen saw in front of him. In this kind of ocean current that was enough to directly tear apart the ordinary Yuanying stage cultivators, these powerful sea beasts were like strolling in a garden, living safely. Perhaps they had been in such an environment since they were born and they had already adapted to it, which also led to the existence of the monsters here. Each of them could be comparable to the peak Yuanying stage and even the masters of the Deshang stage. Fortunately, Lan Ying's monster power crystal was an absolute strong token in the ocean. Even if those fierce sea beasts were sometimes swept by the ocean currents not far from the shuttle, they would try their best to avoid it. However, Yang Chen still noticed that although these sea beasts lived very freely here, the trajectory of their actions was intentionally or unintentionally moving away from the direction of the current. Even if they sometimes floated along the current for a while when they were resting, they would soon swim in the opposite direction, as if there was something terrible in the destination of the ocean current. Everything seemed to indicate the danger of the destination of Yang Chen's trip, but Yang Chen was looking forward to it more and more. Xiao Tian couldn't help but start flying up and down. It seemed that he was very close to the goal. He didn't know what the dragon chi was here. Yang Chen even guessed that there would be a living dragon? It must be known that in his previous life, Yang Chen had never seen a dragon anywhere else except in the immortal world. As early as hundreds of thousands of years, millions of years or even earlier, the dragon clan had all arrived in the immortal world, and there was no one left in the mortal world or the spiritual world. Only a few creatures with a trace of faint dragon bloodline were passed down, and Xiao Tian was one of them. But if it weren't for the blood essence of the howling celestial dog, Xiao Tian would now be just a native dog, which was not surprising. Chapter 831. In less than half an hour, the shuttle came to a huge whirlpool under the high-speed drive of the terrifying ocean current. This huge whirlpool on the seafloor was the source of all the ocean currents and the source of the super-strong suction force. The shuttle once again showed flexibility in the ocean that was completely inconsistent with Yang Chen's cultivation base. In the process of rotating with the whirlpool, it still maintained a stable balance and did not make Yang Chen feel dizzy. The bottom of the sea where this whirlpool was located was a complete huge slate of unknown material, almost hundreds of miles. Outside the whirlpool, there were some unique creatures attached to the bottom of the sea, but on this slate there was nothing, it was bare, and when his spiritual awareness touched it, he could even feel the kind of fineness and smoothness. He didn't know how many years this slate has been scoured by this powerful whirlpool. Even if it was a stubborn iron, it was estimated that it would have been ground into powder, but this slate still appeared so complete. The quality of the material was stunning. It was definitely an excellent material for refining the flying sword magic weapon. Coming here, not to mention anything else, as long as he could knock off a small piece from this huge slate, it would be worth the risk. Of course, the premise was that he had the ability to stay here, and he could also get a piece of the slate from this whirlpool that could almost tear up a Deshang stage master for tens of thousands of years without being damaged. Now Yang Chen has discovered that the shuttle can maintain balance and not be torn apart in the whirlpool, not because of how strong the shuttle's protective ability is, but because the shuttle can effectively use and even decompose the power of the water flow to maintain the current situation. Sometimes it's not just brute force that can cope with the situation. The shuttle was slowly sucked towards the center of the whirlpool with the rotation of the whirlpool. The pressure outside was getting greater and greater, and the shuttle had begun to tremble slightly. This was a very dangerous sign, which meant that the power of the shuttle had been exerted to the extreme. If it went inside, it was likely to be unable to resist the pressure of the whirlpool and would break directly. At this moment, Yang Chen didn't think about anything else. He directly sacrificed the sea jasper and wrapped the shuttle in it. Since this sea-pouring jasper cup dared to be called sea-pouring, if it couldn't even cope with this whirlpool, would the dragon clan come up with such a powerful name? Sure enough, as Yang Chen expected, when the sea-pouring jasper cup came out, even if it was still in the whirlpool, it was calm within a foot of the periphery of the jasper cup, as if the whirlpool had lost all its power. A foot away, it was still surging violently. The flying shuttle and the sea-pouring jasper cup, the two magic weapons produced in the treasure house of the Dragon Clan, have proved all of Yang Chen's guesses. As long as these magic weapons are in hand, Yang Chen will never have a problem. Because of the strength of the sea-pouring jasper cup, in this crazy vortex, Yang Chen cannot follow the flow, but slowly enter the center of the vortex from the periphery bit by bit. Of course, Yang Chen inevitably controlled the sea-pouring jasper cup to fall on the huge complete stone. With Yang Chen's eyesight, he couldn't see what the material of the stone was. Originally, it should have been possible to rely on the power of Xiao Tian to cut off a piece with the flying sword, but Yang Chen was afraid of what disastrous consequences would occur after destroying the integrity of the stone, so he didn't do it. There will be plenty of opportunities to do it in the future, so let's see what secrets there are in it first. In the middle of the stone there was a huge bottomless black hole. The original shape of the hole had a diameter of several feet. Before he got close, he could feel the terrifying suction coming from inside. The sea-pouring jasper cup could still maintain calmness within a foot radius, but within 100 feet of the entrance of the cave, there was only an inch of space left. Out of this range, it was a shuddering turbulent force. This black hole was obviously where all the secrets were. Yang Chen moved forward 50 or 60 feet, and was only 30 or 40 feet away from the hole. The protective range of the sea-pouring jasper cup had been reduced to a few points, almost close to the periphery of the sea-pouring jasper cup. Yang Chen was hesitating whether to enter the black hole. However, without waiting for Yang Chen to make a decision, Xiao Tian had eagerly rushed out of the medicine garden, quickly drilled out of the sea-pouring jasper cup, and rushed into the black hole. At this point, Yang Chen no longer thought about it and rushed forward, following Xiao Tian. However, when rushing into the dark hole, Yang Chen's spiritual awareness suddenly found that there were 5 buckles on the edge of the hole, evenly distributed in 5 directions of the circular hole. He didn't know what they were used for. Between the lightning and flint, Yang Chen's heart moved, and he took out the 5 elements hook. He put a set on his wrist, and the 5 elements of spirit power entered, and the 5 elements of the hook suddenly seemed to come alive. With the command of Yang Chen, the 5 hooks of the 5 elements lock have hooked a buckle each. Then Yang Chen's figure entered the black hole. The suction was getting stronger and stronger, and Yang Chen's falling figure in the hole was getting faster and faster. It was just a breath of time, and it had exceeded the limit that the spiritual power could control. No matter how Yang Chen used his spiritual power to fly, it was useless. If he wanted to fly with the sword, the flying sword could not be released at all. The situation has been completely out of control. Just when Yang Chen felt that the speed could no longer be controlled, his wrist was tight, and then there was a severe pain. The 5 elements hook abruptly pulled Yang Chen's wrist, easing the speed of Yang Chen's rapid fall. In such a high-speed state, he suddenly pulled his body by the strength of his wrist. If it weren't for the fact that Yang Chen's cultivation of the yellow turban strongman body refining technique had passed the realm of mountain picking strength, this was enough to break Yang Chen's arm. Even so, Yang Chen's wrist was still extremely painful, as if it was going to break. Finally, after the speed slowly eased down, Yang Chen was able to use his spiritual power to relieve the pain, which made him feel a little better. However, Yang Chen's body was pulled by the hook, but Wan Qian's 5 female apprentices who had been staying in Yang Chen's dome hall, Yang Chen's 5 puppets, under this powerful pull, directly rushed out of the dome hall, maintaining the high speed just now, and in the blink of an eye, they disappeared out of the scope of Yang Chen's spiritual awareness exploration. This almost scared Yang Chen to death. Fortunately, he had an ominous premonition and did not let Gong Sunling follow him. Otherwise, if Gong Sunling fell like the 5 puppets, without the protection of the sea-pouring jasper cup, it would definitely make Yang Chen regret it for life. At this moment, Yang Chen even began to doubt his action of rushing down with Xiao Tian, whether it was right or wrong. Chapter 832. The long rope of the 5-element hook was made of dragon tendons. The 5 strands were twisted into one. It was extremely tough and could be long or short. At this moment, with the control of Yang Chen, it slowly grew at a uniform speed, as if it was hanging Yang Chen down. All the way down slowly, Yang Chen was afraid. Fortunately, Gong Sunling and Ho Yun did not come together. Otherwise, with this posture, even if Ho Yun fell, it was estimated that it would be the end of a broken body. Fortunately, the Penglai Divine Wood Tree Demon was rooted in the medicine garden and did not fall out, which was fortunate. Another fear was that fortunately, when he entered the hole, he had a flash of light and hooked the 5-element hook on the 5 buckles. If not, even with the protection of the sea jasper cup, it was estimated that he would inevitably die. The kind of fear of death, This was the most frightening time after Yang Chen's rebirth. Even when he was chased by Luo Yuan, a master of the late Deshang stage, Yang Chen did not have such fear. Perhaps Luo Yuan's pursuit of Yang Chen was just because he was unwilling to give up his long-time sacrificial refining of the flying sword, so he refused to use the bloody river. Even if he was caught up, it could actually be said that it was under the control of Yang Chen. But this time, it was obviously out of the control of Yang Chen. In Yang Chen's memory, there has never been any news about this place. It has never appeared. Before the old Dragon King died, he told him about the treasure house of the Dragon Clan, but he did not say anything about it. However, everything here shows that this absolutely has an unbreakable relationship with the treasure house of the Dragon Clan. Whether it was the flying shuttle, the sea jasper cup, or the 5-element hook, all of them reflected this. Without these things, coming here was definitely a dead word. There was no other possibility. The strength of the Dragon Clan was by no means what human cultivators could imagine. In the process of falling at a uniform speed, Yang Chen also felt a little difficult. Originally, this 5-element hook was designed for 5 people with different attributes. Now that Yang Chen was controlling it alone, it was naturally more strenuous than 5 people. However, because Yang Chen only needed one person to control it, it saved the trouble of 5 people to synchronize the control. It was more flexible and consistent than the control of 5 people, but there was not much danger. The middle Deshang stage spiritual awareness was enough to control the 5-element hook. The only thing he needed to pay attention to was that Yang Chen had to maintain a sufficient input of spiritual power. This was even more effortless, not to mention the massive first wood spiritual solution and 7th metal spiritual solution in the gourd. There were countless good things in the medicine garden that could be used to supplement spiritual power at any time. With the help of the 5 elements cable hook, Yang Chen was able to calculate how high he had fallen. 10,000 zhang, 20,000 zhang, all the way until he was almost 10,000 zhang. Suddenly, Yang Chen's eyes lit up and his feet shook as he stepped on something. Sure enough, it was a magic weapon made of dragon tendons. The long rope of the 5-element hook was now thin, but it was extremely tough. Under the huge suction, there was no sign of it breaking. At this point, the huge suction force suddenly disappeared without a trace, and the power that tore everything apart also disappeared. Suddenly, he was in a bright place, which was completely different from the darkness at the bottom of the sea. From above, there was no light here at all. After taking back the sea jasper cup, Yang Chen began to look around carefully. This was a huge space, surrounded by dozens of huge stone pillars that were hundreds of feet high. At first glance, it looked like a huge palace. The aura here was very similar to the aura in the Dragon Palace treasure house. There was no need to ask, this was definitely the work of the Dragon Clan. However, what made Yang Chen strange was that compared with the Dragon Palace treasure house, there seemed to be a sense of decay here, which was very puzzling. Immediately afterward, Yang Chen found that he was not standing on the ground, but above a small hill about 100 feet high. Taking a closer look at the hill, he was suddenly shocked and hurriedly jumped down from it. Where was this a hill? It was simply the corpses of countless powerful and incomparable sea monsters piled up. Falling from such a high hole under the effect of the huge suction, it was impossible to control the speed. Even if it was a master of the Deshang stage, they would only be left with the fate of falling into a meat patty. This hill, which was hundreds of feet high, was stacked together by countless meat patties. It has long been impossible to see what kind of sea monster it was. The only thing that was certain was that they were at least Deshang stage monsters. Ordinary monsters, even before they reached the interior of the whirlpool, they would be crushed into pieces in the edge area. No matter how powerful the cultivator was, under the arrangement of the Dragon Clan, if they did not get anything from the treasure house of the Dragon Palace, they would only be able to go back. The Sea of No Return. This was the reason why the Sea of No Return was called the Sea of No Return. The place where Yang Chun had just landed was a few pools of fresh meat patties. Needless to say, those were the 5 female apprentices of Wan Qian who fell from above. Perhaps they were the ones with the lowest cultivation base in this flesh hill. Yang Chun did not see the figure of Xiao Tian, but he could feel the existence of Xiao Tian. It was still alive, and almost nothing happened to it. He really didn't know how it survived such a terrible fall. Perhaps everything here was designed for the Dragon Clan. Xiao Tian, as a dragon, had the aura of the Dragon Clan, so it was safe and sound. Knowing that Xiao Tian was safe, Yang Chen was also relieved and began to look around. The huge palace was clearly matched with the huge body of the Dragon Clan. This was not a palace where humans lived at all. Could this be the legendary Dragon Palace? Yang Chen was not sure. No one had ever seen the Dragon Palace. They had only heard that the Dragon Palace had always been magnificent, and there were precious treasures and riches everywhere. But as for the specifics, no one knew except for those who had lived in the Dragon Palace in the past. Apart from these huge pillars and the empty palace, there was only that small mountain of flesh and blood. Xiao Tian didn't know where he was wandering. It seemed that he wanted to absorb all the remaining dragon chi here. Yang Chun didn't care about Xiao Tian. Here, Xiao Tian would definitely be safer than himself. After turning around, Yang Chun returned to the front of the Hill of Bones. It must be known that among this pile of hills, except for the 5 female apprentices of Wan Qian who were at the peak Jidan stage, the others were all Deshang stage masters' bones without exception. This pile of hills was definitely the best tonic for the Blood Demon Vine sword and the Blood Demon Vine that was still in the recovery period in the Medicine Garden. When he came to the Treasure Mountain, how could he return empty-handed? Without thinking about it, Yang Chun sacrificed the Blood Demon Vine flying sword, controlled the flying sword, regardless of the consequences, drilled into the pile of master's bones and began to absorb as much as he could. Chapter 833. Except for these peerless masters, nothing else could enter here, and these peerless masters, even if they have already died, and their bodies have even been smashed into meat paste, but the bodies have not decayed, and even the blood is still in the form of liquid, gathering in a large pit on the ground under the hill. The blood pool formed by the blood of the masters of the Deshang stage was simply the most delicious meal for the Blood Demon Vine flying sword. Plunging into the blood pool at the bottom of the mountain, the Blood Demon Vine flying sword began to absorb the blood madly. Yang Chun and the Blood Demon Vine flying sword were connected. At this moment, he could even perceive the kind of joy coming from the flying sword. It was like a hungry and thirsty disaster suddenly rushed into the banquet of the Manchu Han imperial feast, or it was the kind that did not need to pay the bill. It was very happy. And the hill-like bones, Yang Chun did not waste, and quickly began to collect them into the medicine garden and piled them under the Blood Demon Vine plant. The Blood Demon Vine, which had its main root cut off, has not fully recovered so far. However, Yang Chun believed that with such a large number of master's bones, when the Blood Demon Vine was completely absorbed, the main root would grow again, and the period of recovery would not be far away. To carry these bones, Yang Chun didn't even have to do it himself, as long as he controlled the Blood Demon Vine to extend its vines and roll these bones in. Yang Chun himself stood in the same place, and did not even move his feet. Even so, it took Yang Chun a whole day to completely empty a hill of more than 100 feet. During this time, the Blood Demon Vine flying sword had completely sucked up the blood pool at the bottom of the hill, as if it had eaten too much. It was directly received by Yang Chun into the Blood Demon Vine in his sea of consciousness, and was tempered like other life source magic weapons. Now Yang Chun had a lot of flying swords. The Great Yin and Yang 5 Elements flying sword already had the first wood flying sword, Penglai Divine wood flying sword, second wood flying sword, Blood Demon Vine flying sword, third fire flying sword, Bright Ray sword refined by Gaoyu, fourth fire sword embryo, fifth earth flying sword, Ming Guangrua's life source flying sword, seventh metal flying sword, Immortal beheading blade. The remaining 4 flying swords, Yang Chen has not yet refined or found them. In his sea of consciousness, there was the Immortal Beheading Blade, 5th Earth Flying Sword, Bright Ray Sword, and now the Blood Demon Vine Sword. However, unlike the Absolute Life Source magic weapon Immortal Beheading Blade, the other 9 of the Great Yin and Yang 5 Elements Flying Sword were used as sword souls. They did not need to be tempered at a deep level like the Immortal Beheading Blade for hundreds of thousands of years, as long as they were tempered at a shallow level. When needed, Yang Chen could take out these flying swords at any time. The last time he used the Bright Ray Sword, after using it, he sent it back to his sea of consciousness to continue. The same was true for the first wood flying sword. After the scouring of the first wood true essence spiritual solution, the quality has been qualitatively improved, and it was also tempered in the sea of consciousness. Now that the Blood Demon Vine Flying Sword has drunk the blood of a master, it has also reached the point where it can be further tempered with spiritual awareness. When it was necessary to use the flying sword, Yang Chen still had the newly refined 4th Fire Flying Sword, which was enough for him to use. Moreover, in addition to the 4th Fire Flying Sword, Yang Chen also had at least thousands of other flying swords. Any one of them, for the current Yang Chen, did not make much difference. After cleaning up the bones and blood of the Masters of the Hill, Yang Chen found that the ground had been shattered by countless impacts. Even though the Masters had also been smashed into meat patties when they fell down, they had just regained their spiritual power here before they died, and they had destroyed a large area of the ground completely. Even if the ground arranged by the Dragon Clan here was made of extremely hard materials, it would not help. The dying counterattack of the Masters of the Deshang stage was by no means something that could not be controlled and repaired by some materials. What surprised Yang Chen was that after cleaning up these, he found that the large area on the ground that was broken turned out to be a complete nautical map. This nautical map was a large area distributed separately. Above this area was the hole, and there was no pillar on the nautical map. Like the nautical map in the Dragon Palace treasure house, this was the nautical map of the South China Sea. Unfortunately, because of the countless impacts, the nautical map has been completely broken. Even if Yang Chen got close to the location of the marked spiritual vein, he could not get any spiritual power from the nautical map. It was really a pity that such a good treasure was actually arranged in this place by the Dragon Clan. It faced the crazy impact of those Masters of the Deshang stage and finally caused it to break. Perhaps the original intention of putting the nautical map here was to rely on the nautical map to absorb the spiritual power of the South China Sea spiritual vein to repair itself, but he did not expect that some of the impacts were so great that even the South China Sea nautical map was shattered. Once the nautical map was shattered, the ability to absorb spiritual power was suddenly lost, and finally it could only become more and more fragmented, becoming what it was now. When Yang Chen cleaned up all this and revealed the nautical map, the figure of Xiao Tian appeared from nowhere and frequently flew above the nautical map. It seemed that he wanted to pass through the nautical map and enter the ground. Yang Chen's heart moved, and he used the merit ring to keep the fragments of the sea map intact and collected them into the merit ring. Such a large nautical map, but also to maintain the position of each other, except for the merit ring, the ordinary Qiankuan bag or the medicine garden could not do it at all. As soon as the nautical map was collected, a huge hole was suddenly revealed and a very familiar aura came from it to Yang Chen. As soon as he probed with his spiritual sense, he was involuntarily pulled into the hole. This was not the first time that Yang Chen had experienced such a situation. In the air, he did not panic and called out the sea jasper and the gourd, and easily fell into the huge lake below. In the middle of the hole, there was a huge lake of 10th water spiritual solution. Because it was so huge, Yang Chen's spiritual awareness couldn't sweep the edge at once. He didn't know how many years of accumulation of 10th water spiritual solution. Yang Chen suspected that the entire 10th water spiritual solution in the South China Sea was gathered here. It was a magic weapon for condensing 10th water true essence. With the sea jasper as a buffer, Yang Chen had no difficulty in collecting these 10th water spiritual solution with the gourd. It was just a matter of time. The Dragon Clan didn't know how many years of accumulation of 10th water spiritual solution. It was so easy for Yang Chen. Now Xiao Tian's body was like a giant python, and it was easy to entangle Yang Chen for a dozen laps. When collecting the 10th water spiritual solution, Xiao Tian impatiently circled around Yang Chen's side, constantly hovering and dancing, very anxious. The abnormality of Xiao Tian also made Yang Chen look forward to it more and more. Could it be that, under this 10th water spiritual solution, was the real good thing? Was this 10th water spiritual solution lake a natural insurance to prevent cultivators from entering the real Dragon Palace? Chapter 834. This was the easiest time for Yang Chen to control the gourd to absorb the spiritual solution. He didn't have to condense the pill when he absorbed it, and he didn't have to worry about whether the magic weapon would be broken. He just had to let go of the speed of absorption. The combination of the sea jasper and the gourd was indeed the fastest combination to absorb the 10th water spiritual solution. The huge lake surface was decreasing at a speed visible to the naked eye, and in the gourd, it quickly formed a 10th water spiritual solution sea that was many times larger than the first wood spiritual solution lake. Like a long whale sucking water, it was already extremely fast in Yang Chen's view, but for this 10th water spiritual solution sea that had been accumulated for many years, it still seemed to be a drop in the bucket. The speed was really too slow. The crazy absorption lasted for almost a few months, and during this time, Xiao Tian was almost the most anxious one. He hovered over Yang Chen's head all day and did not even go back to the Dragon Tower. After absorbing for almost 5 months, Yang Chen suddenly noticed some changes in the gourd, and then he quickly understood what the changes were. Speaking of it, this gourd was actually the same as the Mountain River geographical map. However, the Mountain River geographical map needed to enrich the mountains and rivers to enhance its power, and this gourd needed to be enriched with a lot of spiritual solution to upgrade. As long as it was a liquid with a strong spiritual power, it was what the gourd needed to upgrade. The first wood spiritual solution, 7th metal spiritual solution, plus the current 10th water spiritual solution, was clearly the most original first wood true essence, 7th metal true essence and 10th water true essence. It was simply a pure spiritual power liquid. Yang Chen controlled the gourd to absorb every drop of spiritual solution, which was equivalent to Yang Chen sacrificially refining the gourd. After a large number of baptisms of the first wood spiritual solution, 7th metal spiritual solution and 10th water spiritual solution, it finally reached a state of qualitative change, and its power was upgraded. The most obvious change was the shape. It was originally a very ordinary crooked-mouthed dry gourd, but now it had become a delicate gourd with a green light on the surface. The size was half smaller than before, and it was half the size of a palm, like a jade carving gourd that had been played for a long time. If Yang Chen did not pour the liquid in front of the gourd, this would be a beautiful jade carving gourd. There was not the slightest overflow of spiritual power. Even if others used their divine sense to explore it at a close distance, they would only think that it was an ordinary jade carving. Only by holding it in one's hand would one understand that it was a container. However, he could only discover one of the liquids in the container that Yang Chen was willing to let others know about. As for what could be poured out of it, it would depend on Yang Chen's control at any time. The jade gourd had been cleansed and refined by such a huge amount of spiritual liquid, it had thoroughly imprinted Yang Chen's imprint in every place. Even if the gourd was obtained by others, without a higher cultivation base than Yang Chen, and without twice the amount of spiritual liquid that Yang Chen had absorbed, it was impossible to completely remove Yang Chen's imprint. The gourd itself had shrunk, but the space within it had not shrunk. Instead, it had grown larger. At the very least, Yang Chen felt as if it could easily contain the entire world. Of course, it was purely a feeling. Yang Chen would never do that. Such a beautiful gourd that could hold all kinds of spiritual liquid, it was absolutely a waste to hold ordinary water. Yang Chen would rather go empty, and would not do such a boring thing. After the jade gourd was upgraded, the speed of absorbing the spiritual liquid had increased several times again. Yang Chen thought that this 10th water spiritual solution C could be absorbed in a few months at most, but he did not expect that this absorption would take a whole year. The huge 10th water spiritual solution C finally bottomed out, revealing the situation below. Before waiting for Yang Chen to completely absorb it and see what was below, Xiao Tian had already screamed and flew out, rushing in a certain direction. Yang Chen quietly waited for all the 10th water spiritual solution to be completely absorbed, and after not wasting a single drop, he began to explore the surrounding environment. Just like the 7th metal spiritual solution lake, after all the spiritual liquid disappeared, the bottom was the 10th water crystal stone that had been condensed under strong pressure, and he didn't know how many layers it was thick. Anyway, there would be nothing wrong with Xiao Tian here. Yang Chen couldn't do anything else, but first, he searched all the 10th water crystal stone into the merit ring. This kind of good thing could only be encountered and not sought. If he encountered it and didn't collect it, it would be a crime. Yang Chen was a good man who abided by the law, so he carefully searched all the 10th water crystal stone and didn't intend to leave any. There was no need to ask here. There must be a formation to condense the 10th water true essence. Even if Yang Chen plundered it, as long as the formation was not destroyed, it would slowly accumulate the 10th water true essence, slowly form the 10th water spiritual solution, and then form the 10th water crystal stone. This kind of temporarily ownerless thing, Yang Chen took it without any psychological burden. There was no dragon in the mortal world, so Xiao Tian was the most qualified to accept the wealth of these dragons. There was no difference between Xiao Tian taking it and Yang Chen taking it. Removing all the 10th water spiritual solution, this was another huge space. Xiao Tian had already arrived at a certain place and was flying anxiously, as if urging Yang Chen to hurry to its side and let him move the 10th water crystal stone away. Yang Chen quickly collected the 10th water crystal stone. After arriving at the place where Xiao Tian was flying, he didn't let Xiao Tian wait for a long time and immediately began to collect the 10th water crystal stone in that area. However, after only collecting a few times, Yang Chen stopped and looked at the crystal stones below incredibly, as if he couldn't believe his eyes. In the almost connected 10th water crystal stone, there was a complete skeleton, as if inlaid in it, which made people feel so incredible. This was a skeleton like a giant python. At first, Yang Chen thought it was a complete dragon skeleton, but seeing that Xiao Tian's mind was not on this skeleton at all, Yang Chen knew it was not. As he carefully cleaned up the surrounding crystal stones, the complete skeleton finally revealed its true appearance. After Yang Chen collected some of the crystal stones, Xiao Tian screamed and rushed in one direction. Yang Chen was stunned and looked at the complete skeleton, full of joy. The body was hundreds of feet long, like a giant python, and the huge skull was similar to the shape of a dragon head. The only difference was that there was no horn. Judging from the shape of the skull, the bone was not broken, but was born without a horn. Such a body, such a shape, Yang Chen immediately had a preliminary judgment in his mind. This was a complete skeleton of the flood dragon. I just don't know why this flood dragon died here. This is not a question that Yang Chen needs to care about. Yang Chen just wants to know why this flood dragon stretched out of the 10th water crystal stone, and even the flesh and blood had been melted away. How did this skeleton remain intact? Chapter 835. No matter what kind of master it was, if they could not withstand the power of the huge spiritual liquid, then there was only one result when they entered the spiritual liquid: the body would explode and die. And it was a crushing burst of the whole body, leaving no trace. This point, Yang Chen has proved it with the lives of countless monsters and demonic cultivators in the first Wood True Essence Spiritual Solution Lake and the seventh Metal True Essence Spiritual Solution Lake. The only and inevitable outcome for those people who fell into the spiritual liquid lake was that they would explode. Even if it was a powerful monster and demonic cultivator, it was useless. There was no magic weapon that could withstand the power of the spiritual liquid. There was no way to survive. But the skeleton of the flood dragon in front of him obviously violated this law. Although the flood dragon was not a pure dragon, it should not lead to the killing of the dragon clan. There was no sign of injury on the bones. The possible explanation was that it could only be exploded in the 10th Water True Essence Spiritual Solution. For Yang Chen, no matter how the flood dragon died, no matter why its skin and flesh melted after it died, and even why it was here and so on, these were not important. The important thing was that the skeleton of this flood dragon was completely preserved. This flood dragon skeleton was completely preserved in the 10th Water True Essence Spiritual Solution, and after condensing into a 10th Water Crystal Stone, it was still not damaged at all. This was absolutely exciting. Yang Chen reached out and gently pinched the bones. The hard bones did not change at all. As Yang Chen gradually increased his strength, the bones only bent slightly and returned to their original state. It was hard but very tough, and it was not known how many years it had existed in the 10th Water Crystal Stone. Was there a better material than this complete skeleton for Yang Chen's 10th Water Flying Sword? After carefully examining the flood dragon skeleton from beginning to end, confirming that there was no small bone left, Yang Chen carefully collected all the bones in their original state, just like the broken nautical maps, and received them into the merit ring. After doing this, Yang Chen continued to collect the 10th Water Crystal Stones on the ground. These 10th Water Crystal Stones were not known to be hundreds of feet thick. Even if Yang Chen used the merit ring to collect them desperately, it still took a lot of time. Just collecting these 10th crystal stones took almost a month for Yang Chen to fully collect them. Fortunately, the space of the merit ring was large enough, otherwise Yang Chen's ordinary Chenkuan bag could not hold so many 10th Water Crystal Stones. After cleaning everything up, Yang Chen discovered that there was also a complete stone slab with a circumference of several hundred miles. No one knew how much effort the Dragon Clan had expended to create such a huge and complete material. There were countless exquisite patterns on the stone slab, forming a huge formation that spanned hundreds of miles. At this moment, Xiao Tian was at the center of the diagram, flying up and down anxiously, but he couldn't find a way to enter. Yang Chen suddenly discovered that the location of Xiao Tian at the moment should be the location of the head of the dragon's skeleton. In that position, there was a semicircular depression on the stone slab. It was unknown what it was used for. Yang Chen flew into the air and started to look from the highest place. Only then did he see that the whole stone slab was an original stone slab. All the patterns formed a huge and complex circle, and the center of the circle was on the pit. Landing next to the pit, as soon as Yang Chen stood still, Xiao Tian came over and his huge head flew up and down. It seemed that he wanted Yang Chen to find a way. Looking at the semicircular depression, Yang Chen still couldn't understand the role of this depression. In his mind, the pattern of the formation was completely analyzed, but he still couldn't figure it out. The secret method of the Dragon Clan was not something that everyone could understand. Even if Yang Chen had the memory of the great principal Golden Immortal, Yang Chen did not know. In the memory of his previous life, no creature in the mortal world could get involved in the secrets of the Dragon Clan. When the East China Sea Dragon King died, he only said about the treasure house, but he didn't mention anything about the things here. However, everything here was closely related to the things in the treasure house of the Dragon Clan. The sea-pouring jasper cup, the shuttle, the 5-element rope hook, and the jade gourd, all of them were things in the treasure house. So the situation here was related to which treasure of the dragon clan? Looking at the semicircular depression, Yang Chen's heart suddenly moved. He roughly estimated the size of the depression, and the huge dragon bead in the treasure house of the Dragon Palace suddenly appeared in his mind. Could it be that the dragon bead had to be placed in this place to be triggered? The formation here needs the dragon bead to be triggered? Yang Chen stared at the depression and couldn't help sweating a little. Such a big dragon bead, how precious was it? Was it just a key used to trigger the formation here? Or as long as it could provide a huge amount of spiritual power energy? After thinking about it, Yang Chen decided to give it a try first. He had already worked hard to get here, and he would never be reconciled if he didn't try it. Did he have to wait for Xiao Tian to grow for many years, and then pick up the dragon bead? Taking out a 10th water crystal stone, the 4th fire-flying sword quickly carved the crystal stone into a complete sphere. The size was similar to that of the semicircular depression, and then Yang Chen put the crystal stone ball on the depression. It was strange to say that it was originally completely covered with 10th water spiritual solution, and the formation did not have any reaction. However, as soon as the crystal stone ball was put on it, it suddenly began to shine. Starting from the depression, the lines lit up, and with the crystal stone ball as the center, the bright lines expanded to the surroundings. The speed of asking the way was very fast, and in the blink of an eye, it spread out to a radius of dozens of feet. Yang Chen's face suddenly showed a smile. It seemed that he guessed correctly. This was a general hub that provided spiritual power, and it was not necessary to use the dragon bead. As long as enough spiritual power could be provided to light up the entire formation, the formation would naturally be launched. Even if it was the dragon race, it would not be necessary to use the dragon bead to trigger a gatekeeping formation, right? You know, a dragon bead means the life of a dragon, and the dragon race is not prosperous enough to not put the lives of the people in their eyes, right? Xiao Tian has begun to fly again with joy. Seeing that he could enter another secret place of the dragon race, Xiao Tian's urgent mood was even more urgent than Yang Chen's, but because he couldn't speak, he could express it in this way. However, the happiness of Xiao Tian and Yang Chen only lasted for a short time. In less than half a stick of incense, the lines on the slate were only a few miles in diameter, and the 10th water crystal stone ball had been drained of all the spiritual power and disappeared without a trace. Those parts that lit up after a few breaths of time were not supplemented by subsequent spiritual power, and soon dimmed again, and finally returned to its original state, as if nothing had happened. Chapter 836. The spiritual power contained in a piece of 10th water crystal stone is hundreds of times that of the same volume of 10th water spiritual solution, and the spiritual power contained in a drop of 10th water spiritual solution is hundreds of times that of a drop of the same volume of 10th water true essence. In this way, the spiritual power contained in such a large 10th water crystal stone ball was enough to be equal to that of a master of the peak Yuanying stage. It was unexpected that even 1/10 of the formation was not lit up. There were a lot of top-grade spirit stones, but at best they were about the same level as the crystal stone, and it was not worth wasting them. The spiritual power required for this formation was enormous. The most hateful thing was that the key was not the amount of spiritual power, but the amount of spiritual power that could be provided in the large volume of the crystal stone ball. Yang Chen tried other methods, such as carving the lower half of the 10th crystal stone into a semicircle, just in line with the pit, leaving some more parts above. After the result was put on, it seemed that the formation could still judge the shape of the crystal stone and refused to start. If it was changed to a circular shape, it could be started again. He didn't know how the formation did this, and Yang Chen had no way to do it for the time being. Did he really have to use the dragon bead? It seems that in this world, only the dragon bead can have such a huge supply of spiritual power. Xiao Tian has been quietly watching Yang Chen do the experiment. He was still waiting with great interest, but now he also has some anxious meaning and began to fly again. After thinking about it, Yang Chen still couldn't think of a way. What was more spiritual power than the 10th crystal stone? Under the urging of Xiao Tian, Yang Chen had to rack his brains to think. After thinking for a while, Yang Chen still felt that he should look at what he had on him. Recently, he had received too many things. Maybe there was something strange that could provide a huge amount of spiritual power. In the Qianquan bag, there were things that Yang Chen did not attach much importance to. After looking through it, there was nothing special. So, Yang Chen began to search in the merit ring. Turning over one by one, Yang Chen suddenly found something, and his heart moved, and he took out the thing that was placed in the corner of the merit ring. It was a walnut-sized ball that glowed with a blue light. It contained a powerful spiritual force. Before rushing to the sea of no return, Yang Chen also used this kind of thing many times to drive away some powerful sea beasts, so as not to delay his journey. This bead was the crystallization of the demon power left by Lan Ning before she ascended. At the end of the day, this was also a crystallization of spiritual power, but it was condensed by a great demon before the tribulation and ascension. The spiritual power contained in it was simply incredible, and it would automatically release a powerful pressure. In the sea, there were no sea beasts that dared to face it head-on. The old tree demon had studied demonic power crystals, and so had Ho Yun. However, in the end, it was a sea monster. Its cultivation method was different from theirs, so the help it could provide was limited. Yang Chen's only use for it was as a sea pass. What was embarrassing was that Lan Ying's monster power crystal could only be applied in the sea creature clan. After arriving on land, it became a target that many monster clans wanted to snatch. At that time, the second city lord of the banyan tree Immortal's cave was greedy because of this monster power crystal. He forcibly chased after Yang Chen and was killed by Yang Chen as a result. In addition to the inappropriate size, it seems that this monster power crystal fully meets the requirements of containing huge spiritual power. Yang Chen thought about it, took out another piece of 10th water crystal stone, carved it into a ball, but hollowed out the center of the ball, leaving a passage, stuffed the monster power crystal into it, and sealed the passage with another suitable crystal stone. Then the 10th water true secret art was launched, and the gap between the two 10th water crystal stones was glued. Before Lan Ning ascended, she not only cultivated Yang Chen's transformation secret art, but also absorbed the 10th water true essence given by Yang Chen. In the monster power crystal left behind, there was a strong 10th water true essence aura, which was the same as the 10th water crystal stone. This was precisely the reason why Yang Chen dealt with it like this. Holding this processed 10th water crystal stone ball, Yang Chen carefully placed it on the semicircular pit again. After putting it in place, Yang Chen pushed away a few steps and together with Xiao Tian, he carefully watched the changes in the crystal stone ball. After a while, it seemed that the crystal stone ball did not have any reaction, and the lines on the stone slab did not show any signs of lighting up. Looking at this situation, Yang Chen couldn't help but sigh in his heart. It seemed that this cheating was not so easy, people didn't recognize it at all. He couldn't help but admit that this formation left by the Dragon Clan was really powerful. It could even judge the shape of the spiritual power source. This was something that Yang Chen had not encountered even in the immortal world. It seemed that the Dragon Clan could always be strong, and it was not without reason. It could be seen from these unique formations. Since the method of cheating didn't work, Yang Chen could also sigh secretly. It was a pity that he had reached this point, but he was blocked outside the door and couldn't get in. But at the moment there was no good way, he could only return here, and then find a way to get the Dragon Clan in the treasure house of the Dragon Clan. It was estimated that only the dragon bead could meet the requirements of this spiritual power source. Just as he was about to step forward and take back the processed crystal stone ball, the crystal stone ball suddenly flashed, and then the lines on the stone slab began to light up again. Yang Chen's eyes suddenly lit up with these lines, and the processed crystal stone ball actually worked. He hurriedly flew to a high place and looked at the bright range of those patterns. Xiao Tian was also a little surprised, but this time he did not fly, but directly on Yang Chen's body. His eyes followed Yang Chen's gaze and stared at the bright patterns. After a while, the patterns had lit up to the last stop range, but this time it did not stop here, but continued to expand outward. In Yang Chen's heart, there was a burst of tension. In the current situation, it was obvious that the demon power crystal of Lan Ying played a role. However, how much stronger this demon power crystal was than the 10th crystal stone, everything was still unknown. Yang Chen was not afraid of losing the demon power crystal. He was afraid of falling short when he was about to succeed. The frustration of failure was the enemy of cultivation. Under Yang Chen's worry, the patterns on the stone slab lit up all the way 20%, 30%, 50%, 80%, 90% until all the patterns were lit up and there was no sign of dimming. And the 10th crystal stone ball still maintained its original size, quietly placed on the pit. Finally, Yang Chen's heart was finally relieved. The crystal stone ball has not disappeared, which means that there are still demon power crystals left, not all used up. Lighting up the patterns was only the first step, and then the formation would be launched, but he didn't know if the demon power crystal could still hold up. Chapter 837. It couldn't be helped but be said that Yang Chen was confused. The memory of ascension in his previous life may have been too long ago, so long that he had forgotten what the quality of spiritual power would be improved after the tribulation. The fundamental reason why the old tree demon and Ho Yun couldn't comprehend more about the crystallization of Lan Ying's demon power was that after the baptism of the wind tribulation, the spiritual power would undergo a qualitative change. Without the experience of the wind tribulation, how could they comprehend anything with two completely different levels of power? All the patterns were lit up, and the formation began to launch. A white light burst from the circular formation below, enveloping the entire space, including Yang Chen and Xiao Tian. All of them were wrapped in light, and there was no trace of them from the outside. All the lights flickered for a while before extinguishing in an instant. There was no one left in the huge space, including the crystal ball that was placed in the semicircular pit. Everything had disappeared without a trace. Yang Chen and Xiao Tian's body was light, and suddenly they appeared in another empty space. As soon as it appeared, Yang Chen felt an incomparably huge dragon qi, which filled the entire space, carrying an irresistible majesty, which naturally made people feel a shock impulse. In the air, Yang Chen looked down and saw a shocking scene. On the ground under his and Xiao Tian's feet, there were dozens of dragons lying in disorder. However, this space was too big. The huge dragon body was like a hill. In the eyes of Yang Chen, it was just dozens of small earthworms. Dragon Clan, the powerful Dragon Clan. There was actually the existence of the Dragon Clan in the mortal world. This discovery made Yang Chen couldn't believe his eyes. From the mouth of the Dragon Clan that he had contacted in his previous life, Yang Chen knew that the Dragon Clan had already left the mortal world and never stayed again. But how could these dragons in front of him be explained? Xiao Tian had already rushed down, but Yang Chen was still in a deep shock. He couldn't believe that his common sense had been overturned. How was this possible? Yang Chen, who was still in shock, soon discovered that the dragons below had already lost all signs of life. This discovery made the shock in Yang Chen's heart lessen a little. If it was just the corpse of a giant dragon, then Yang Chen would be able to accept it even more. However, after discovering this, Yang Chen was overjoyed. Gao Yu had only obtained 2 dragon horns, but it was already like she had obtained a precious treasure. The Mountain River geographical map was just made of dragon skin, and the 5-element hook was made of dragon tendons and dragon bones. These were just a part of the dragon's body. However, there were dozens of intact giant dragon corpses at the bottom. Compared to this, The flood dragon's skeleton outside was nothing more than trash. No one would pick it up even if it was thrown away. Immediately, Yang Chen could no longer contain his excitement and rushed towards the corpses of the giant dragons. If he didn't cherish such a good thing, he would be struck by lightning. However, Yang Chen only rushed down with excitement and saw a scene that made him heartbroken. Xiao Tian was already close to those giant dragon corpses, and facing these giant dragon corpses that should be regarded as his elders, Xiao Tian also seemed to have a little scruples, and gently tapped on a giant dragon. Boom, as if this point of Xiao Tian was a signal, it triggered a series of changes. The corpses of those giant dragons, like the bones of ordinary people who have been weathered for countless years, instantly turned into powder. Before the powder fell to the ground, it was blown away by the wind that came out of nowhere. The body of the giant dragon disappeared so thoroughly that Yang Chen's extravagant hope of collecting a little powder fell through. People were still in the air, but Yang Chen's heart seemed to have been hollowed out by something, and he was heartbroken to death. Such a precious treasure disappeared so easily, making Yang Chen have an unreal feeling. I hope that the scene just now was just a dream, not a reality. Unfortunately, until Yang Chen fell to the ground, everything in front of him had not changed. What had happened, and it could no longer be changed. Perhaps these should not appear in the world at all. Yang Chen adjusted his mood in an instant. It was already a miracle that he could see this scene with his own eyes, so he didn't want too much. Worrying about gains and losses, that was not what a great principal golden immortal should do. Here, Xiao Tian seemed to be in heaven. Every breath contained a strong dragon aura. Xiao Tian was happy all over the world, and the happy mood was even transmitted to Yang Chen. After hovering in the air for a while, Xiao Tian seemed to feel something. He slowly flew to a position and stopped. After looking carefully for a while, he flew to Yang Chen's side. This time, Xiao Tian directly rolled up Yang Chen, then took him to that position, and then began to fly above. Yang Chen was very puzzled. Was there anything special here? After looking down and carefully observing, he found that there was a complete octagonal mark on the ground here. It was an imprint left by something, and even a groove was left on the ground. The groove was very shallow, but it was very clear. Just thinking about it a little, Yang Chen knew what to do. Since everything here was related to the Dragon Palace treasure house, then this must be no exception. The octagonal thing, except for the base of the dragon tower, there was nothing else. Quickly summoning the dragon pagoda from the medicine garden, Yang Chen found the octagonal traces and accurately placed the base of the dragon pagoda. This action was like a key to open a lock, completely activating all the arrangements here. All of a sudden, all the dragon aura in the entire space directly turned into a white mist visible to the naked eye, and quickly condensed towards the dragon tower. The white mist gathered from all directions, and the dragon tower seemed to have infinite suction, completely absorbing these white dragon auras. After a while, there was no trace of dragon aura around, and all of it was absorbed by the dragon tower. Xiao Tian cheered and rushed directly into the dragon tower, and the door of the dragon tower was closed again. The entire interior of the dragon tower has been filled with white thick liquid-like dragon aura. Xiao Tian was in it, it was like being in heaven. As soon as the door of the dragon tower was closed, a beautiful palace group appeared out of thin air, and the dragon tower shone. The dragon tower seemed to be directly integrated into the palace group, becoming a complete set of buildings. It was described as magnificent, resplendent, and so on, and it seemed that it was not perfect enough to express the feeling of the palace. Even Yang Chen, who had seen the spectacular great principal golden immortal of the heavenly court, couldn't think of any appropriate words to describe it for a while. In the face of such a palace group, Yang Chen only felt one kind of emotion, that is, beauty and comfort. Chapter 838. Just looking at it, there was such a feeling. If he really lived in it, what kind of enjoyment would it be? The palace of the Jade Emperor was just like this, right? The luxury of the Dragon Clan was simply speechless. He didn't know how those guys in the heavenly court would feel if this scene was known by them. While admiring, Yang Chen suddenly found that his body was involuntarily flying to a certain place. The most incredible thing was that the flight turned out to be with his own strength, that is to say, unconsciously, he had been completely controlled by others. Soon Yang Chen noticed that it was not that he was being controlled, but there was an invisible request that he could not refuse. This time, Yang Chen was suddenly shocked. What kind of power could make him like this, so that although his heart was vigilant and shocked, his body did not resist the request of the other party? In the midst of the shock, Yang Chen had come to the edge of a square pool. Below was a pool of white liquid, exuding a burst of fragrance. Yang Chen's body was no longer under his own control at this moment, and he stepped into the pool. The moment he was soaked by the white liquid, Yang Chen suddenly understood everything completely. Just now it was Xiao Tian who directed him to walk into this pool. From entering the Dragon Tower and then the palace appeared, Xiao Tian, as a descendant of the Dragon Clan, controlled everything here. The Dragon Tower was the master hub that controlled everything, and Xiao Tian instantly understood all the arrangements here. The white liquid in this pool was the Dragon Yuan left by the Dragon Clan. This was a kind of body secretion unique to the Dragon Clan. For the Dragon Clan and the descendants of the Dragon Clan like Xiao Tian, it did not have much effect, but it had indescribable benefits for human cultivators. The most obvious benefit was that as soon as Yang Chen entered it, it was as if he was contaminated with the aura of the Dragon Clan, and Xiao Tian could no longer control Yang Chen. And Yang Chen also instantly understood all the thoughts of Xiao Tian, even clearer than the spiritual connection between the main pet. In the past, Yang Chen could only command Xiao Tian through his spiritual awareness. He could see everything Xiao Tian saw through Xiao Tian's eyes, but he could not clearly feel Xiao Tian's emotions. Now, Yang Chen seemed to know Xiao Tian's mind easily. Once this kind of dragon essence was contaminated by other races, it would quickly disappear in a short period of time. The opportunity was rare. Yang Chen did not care to communicate with Xiao Tian, and quickly began to cultivate in the dragon essence pool. Dragon essence had a strong amplification effect on all the cultivation techniques that Yang Chen cultivated. Cultivating in the dragon essence was 100 times faster than cultivating on ordinary spirit veins. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Yang Chen would definitely not miss it. He simply began to cultivate the cultivation methods that he was currently cultivating. At present, Yang Chen's most powerful cultivation method was the Three Purities secret art. This spiritual awareness cultivation method, which was directly passed down from the Taishang Laojun, has not been improved after entering the third layer. Twice in a row, it was about to enter the realm of spiritual awareness splitting. It was resolved by Yang Chen using the Supreme Mystery Yin-Yang Heart Sutra and Gao Yugong Suanling's dual cultivation. At this realm, the division of the spiritual awareness did not have much benefit for Yang Chen. But at this moment the dragon essence was really rare, and he couldn't care about that much. As soon as the Three Purities secret art began to be cultivated, Yang Chen felt the powerful amplification effect of the dragon essence. Even the Three Purities secret art, which had been stuck in the third layer for a long time, after just cultivating for a while, it was faintly on the verge of a breakthrough. The crazy improvement of the spiritual awareness, the speed of improvement made Yang Chen feel afraid. The peak middle Deshang stage, the late Deshang stage, the peak late Deshang stage, the peak Deshang stage, the peak Deshang stage, the peak Deshang stage, until the human immortal first grade, it stopped. The crazy skyrocketing spiritual awareness directly allowed Yang Chen to cross the limit of the Deshang stage and enter the realm of the human immortal first grade that could only be reached after ascending to the spiritual world. In this world, no one dared to say that their spiritual awareness was stronger than Yang Chen's. The strange thing was that in this crazy improvement, Yang Chen's spiritual awareness did not show any signs of splitting, which made Yang Chen satisfied. However, this was not the most satisfactory place for Yang Chen. What made Yang Chen most satisfied was that the three purities secret art had been upgraded to the fourth layer. Unexpectedly, without the splitting of the spiritual awareness, it was upgraded to the fourth layer. The fourth layer of the three purities secret art, that was a completely different concept, not to mention the growth speed of the spiritual awareness, not to mention the degree of conciseness. At the fourth layer, the spiritual awareness could be released to hurt people. This was not a simple hypnosis or spiritual awareness shock, but it could directly harm the other's spiritual awareness. However, Yang Chen's spiritual awareness had finally reached the edge of splitting. As long as it was improved a little, it would have to split and form a second primordial spirit. His sea of consciousness had undergone earth-shaking changes. The biggest change was the addition of a white dragon. The dragon possessed a very powerful pressure of the dragon clan. When it was slightly released, it could make people have a feeling of having to look up to it. It was as if they were facing a peerless expert and felt ashamed of their inferiority. It was completely different from the killing intent of the Bloody River. The killing intent could make people collapse, but Longwei could make people feel humble, and even dare not to be enemies at all. Although this Longwei was not as strong as the killing intent, which made people bow their heads and worship it, he already had the white dragon, which was equivalent to planting the seed of Longwei, and there would be unlimited growth possibilities in the future. The white dragon crawled on top of the long river of blood, covering all the blood in the river. And the external temperament of Yang Chen himself seemed to have undergone earth-shaking changes. Originally, when Yang Chen was angry, his killing intent was monstrous, and the timid people would directly be scared to collapse. But now Yang Chen was angry, but with a vast majesty of despising all living beings, others would involuntarily be affected, and the momentum would naturally be weaker. Even if it was a strong enemy, if the momentum was weak, the combat effectiveness would naturally be reduced a bit. Basically, as long as Yang Chen could master the Longwei and the killing intent, he was already in an invincible position. Of course, this was just a superficial phenomenon. If Yang Chen really wanted to kill people, if he really wanted to use the Bloody River, he would not be affected in any way. It was just up to Yang Chen to choose between the monstrous killing intent and the vast Longwei. The frequent use of the killing intent would make people think of it as an evil spirit, and then eliminate it to defend the Tao, but the Longwei would only make people convinced, which would only bring more benefits to Yang Chen. In addition, his sea of consciousness had directly expanded more than 3 times, reaching a radius of 2,000 acres. The degree of conciseness had reached a jaw-dropping level. Not to mention anything else, in this world, no one could make Yang Chen's sea of consciousness hurt, even if it was the master who had passed the wind tribulation and was about to ascend. After the cultivation of the 3 purities secret art, Yang Chen immediately turned to the yellow turban strongman body refining technique.